Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
Dallas Mavericks had a chance tonight, Perloff, to take care of the Minnesota Timberwolves and punch their ticket to the NBA Finals where they could meet the Boston Celtics. Welcome to the show, by the way. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. But, we don't really want to talk about basketball like that this morning. Instead, we got a question for you, Perloff, for the audience, EJ, Pete, everybody gets to answer this question. And it's about the city of Dallas and their sports teams. And the question is, who's the better owner? Is it Jerry Jones or is it Mark Cuban?
Okay.
These are two superstar owners, too. These are not guys who are shy behind the scenes. These are dudes who are out front, the faces of their franchise.
Yeah, I mean, they are the two most famous owners in their respective sports. Jerry's clearly number one in football, and Cuban is, I can't even, who's competition for Cuban as most famous owner?
Well, the Buss family, but Jeannie has now really been more behind the scenes lately.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the show helps with Mark Cuban with Shark Tank, so he is the face of the NBA in some ways, and Jerry. So it's a great debate in the sense that those guys match up perfectly. Huge personalities, popular teams. Obviously, the Cowboys are the most popular team. But this is not really an argument here. Obviously, Mark Cuban's a better owner because Mark Cuban has not been submarining his team's success for the last 30 years.
Okay, that's your theory, by the way, on Jerry, that somehow he's standing in the way.
Yes, he's not standing in the way. He is getting his hands in. He's making every owner sports crime there is by being way too interventionist. He's the general manager of the team. He has to pull back, and he will not do it. So, therefore, Mark Cuban wins automatically. And Cuban has been a very successful owner in the sense that the Mavs have been a consistent winning team, more consistent than even the Cowboys over the last 25 years since the 90s run. So, Cuban is definitely the better owner in this conversation.
Oh, I don't think so. Now, this is going to be a little bit harder for me to defend Jerry Jones because of literally what's going on right now in their offseason, because he made this big proclamation of all in, and it doesn't appear they're doing that. But let's zoom out a little bit. Let's not be prisoner of the moment, as they say, and let's look at Jerry Jones, because you're talking about consistent winners. I'm looking at a man who's presided over 3 Super Bowls, and you can say, oh, they were Jimmy's players. Well, who hired Jimmy? Who hired Jimmy Johnson? Yeah. It was Jerry Jones. They were college teammates, obviously, at Arkansas. You know that they got along well, and the reason why that marriage broke up, people pin it all on Jerry.
Yeah.
Jimmy also had to walk away. Now, yes, he did. That was egos that got together and one. It's not that Jimmy was saying, "Please, Jerry, let me keep my job." That's not how this went down back in the early 90s. So
I don't agree with you. You're saying that if Jerry was a solid by the book owner, he would have found a way to get along with Jimmy Johnson.
Okay, well, regardless, they still won, even if it was with Jimmy's players or whatever. Jerry Jones took over a team, and they were the worst team in football. And he buys them in 1989, and they're 1-15. And it obviously set up, the incredible run with Jimmy Johnson. But you mentioned that the Dallas Mavericks have been more consistent of a winner. The Cowboys have been a playoff team more often than not, and 3 straight years of 12-win seasons, including winning the division. That doesn't, I don't see how that precludes and prohibits his team from winning a Super Bowl. Jerry Jones invests as much as any owner, more than any owner, into facilities, into roster. Their drafts have been great. They have Pro Bowlers on both sides of the ball, and those are draft picks. And I think at times they've actually been a bit judicious. Maybe, people want them to go more all in on free agency. But if your team is good enough to win 12 games 3 years in a row, that means they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. Jerry Jones isn't out there allowing Aaron Jones to run all over the field. He can't get out there and tackle. It's not his fault that the players no-show in the postseason. All he can do as the owner is set them up, and he does set them up to be very good.
That's a ridiculous statement, by the way.
What's that?
being 12-5 3 years in a row makes you good enough to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We know as a scientific fact that that's not true because we all watch the Dallas Cowboys. That's not the way it works. Being 12-5 obviously is not good enough to win the Super Bowl.
No, but all you can do as the owner is set your team up to be a good team. Dak Prescott is an MVP candidate last year, so clearly he has got enough help and he's got enough weapons. I mean, you and I may not have thought he had enough, but clearly he did if he's in that conversation. And the team is good enough to win the division, and you're good enough in the NFC to compete. It's not Jerry's fault that they bleeped the bed against the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. You want to talk about assigning blame to why they haven't won a Super Bowl. I can't put that on Jerry when the team's good enough to have double-digit wins.
Whose fault is it that the Cowboys have not been back to the Super Bowl since Jimmy Johnson? Just top ahead. Everybody answers that question the same way. Jerry Jones.
Because he's so famous and it's so easy to point to, but not everything is always the same. Because
so who else are you blaming?
So who else is also giving their team a chance to be a playoff team every single year?
Lots of other. Well, first of all, it hasn't been every year in that. They've had a lot of down years.
Okay, but so the Mavericks, if we're doing Jerry Jones versus Mark Cuban, it's much easier to make the playoffs in the NBA than it is until very recently when they add yet another wild card to the NFL. It is the hardest sport to win in football. It's much harder to win than it is in basketball. Everyone makes the playoffs in basketball, and now you got the play-ins and all that stuff.
Well, now everyone makes it in football, too. I mean,
that's very recent, though.
Yeah, but Jerry, I mean, I know it's a fact. I don't have the math in front of me that Mark's made a lot more playoffs than Jerry has because you're right, it is a little harder in the NFL. But
in the last 10 years, they've both made the playoffs 6 out of the last 10 years.
Okay, but since 2000, somebody look up the numbers.
It's going to be very, very close. I mean, the Cowboys don't have this. The longest drought they had was from 2010 to 2013. That's it. So, it's not like these massive layoffs where they're not going to the playoffs for long stretches.
Since Cuban took over, there's only 5 seasons he has not made the playoffs in 2000. So that's all. Yeah, Jerry's not like that.
Okay, but it's not that far off. And the other part is it's so much easier to make the playoffs in the NBA. We're talking about who's the better owner in Dallas. Is it Mark Cuban or is it Jerry Jones? And here's the funny thing about that. You look back at those Mavericks teams and what was happening when they did make the playoffs. They're losing in the first round. Yeah. We're not talking about them going on these sustained runs here. They're getting bounced in the first round.
And what have the Cowboys done since Jimmy left the building?
They've won more playoff games. They have.
I mean the Mavs,
first of all,
obviously.
The Mavs have more opportunities.
The Mavs
to win
had
games.
a lot more postseason success this millennium. There's no doubt about that. The Cowboys have really struggled in the playoffs.
Okay, but the Mavs got to the Western Conference Finals in a bubble year. You know how I feel about the bubble.
Right.
And now here they are again. And they had to tank last year. What? Was it a bubble year?
No, sorry, that was not a bubble year.
Was
that
it the year before?
That was the year after the bubble.
Oh, I'm sorry. Year after the bubble, pardon me. And they get to the Western Conference Finals, fine, and they're here again. But where's the title? I'm looking at the title for the Mavs that goes back to 2011.
So let's not sit and have a debate about who's been better, the Mavs or the Cowboys.
Yeah, right, because that's not really...
Because it's obviously the Mavs. The question is, who's a better owner? So let's talk about being an owner and what an owner is supposed to do.
Okay.
So an owner is supposed to set up the business for success on the field. We don't care about making money. That's not what this is debated about, because Jerry's actually awesome at that. He's made himself a lot of money. He's made the league a lot of money.
And by extension, players.
Yes, that's totally true.
Yep.
Cuban also has obviously made his players even more money because NBA guys get paid through the roof.
These guys are good at being rich.
Yes.
Both of them.
But I don't think that's what this debate is clearly about. Which owner does a better job of putting a winning product out there? And I think Cuban, to his credit, in an NBA that's very competitive. You're saying it's easy to get to the finals in the NBA. It's really
it's easy to make the playoffs, I said.
Well, okay, right. But it's hard to have sustained success in the NBA, too.
Why?
And I think... Well, because, I mean, the kind of success that he's had, there's not that many teams win in the NBA. Like, they basically, since 2000, was a lot of Lakers, a lot of Spurs, a lot of LeBron. And then the Warriors came along. It's not like the NFL. Since in 2000, there hasn't been really a repeat champion in the NFL since the 04, before the Chiefs this year. It was the 04 Patriots. The NFL is very, very spread around. There's a lot of parity in the NFL. NBA, there's less. I think the NBA, the same franchises get there again and again.
Okay, but the thing is about the NBA is if you have one game-changing player, that just totally just changes the outlook on your entire franchise. One singular player outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes or whatever is very hard to change the fortunes of an NFL franchise because you really need all 53. Where if you have Dirk Nowitzki, who's a Hall of Famer, and you have him for years and years and years and years, you know what you've got there. You've already got a bona fide superstar. Now it's on you to put, good players around him. For Jerry and the Cowboys, you have to reinvent the wheel almost every single year. Okay, you could have Dak Prescott, you could have Tony Romo for extended amounts of time, but you literally have to reshape way more of the roster year after year than you do. It's so much harder in the NFL. What Jerry is doing is much harder than what Mark Cuban's doing.
And by the way, just a quick housekeeping thing. The Jerry in the Cowboys since 2010 playoff appearances. Cuban, 19 since 2000.
Okay.
Here's the thing about it. It's been 28 years since they made an NFC title game. Yeah, you reinvent every year, but the norm in the NFL is that you hit a little more than that. Something's wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong with the way the Cowboys are built. And if I have to point to Jerry for that. There is something about that team, the way they're organized, that is never going to be able to get over the top with Jerry Jones as the owner.
But then we're asking who's the better owner. Is it Jerry Jones or is it Mark Cuban in Dallas? But then here's my question to that. If Jerry Jones is the reason that the team's not making the Super Bowl, then why did the Dallas Cowboys win the division? And why do they have such a good reputation for drafting? Because those would be the two. Where else can the owner get involved? If you're not talking about the business side, what else does he do to influence the product on the field? If it's not in the draft room, which the Cowboys, again, are a good drafting team, if it's not there and they win lots of games, this is not a bottom feeder franchise. That the hype around them is out of control, but the results are actually I would say on par with every other franchise, if not a little bit better.
Well, there's two things. First, there's the coaching hire, which he obviously has not had a great track record. He had a bunch of nobodies. He did have Parcells in there, and that was really good.
Yeah. But he hired Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah,
let's not
he
forget
hired Jimmy
that.
Johnson. But then he said, I don't want a coach who's going to outshine me. And he had Jason Garrett stick around forever. Now you got Mike McCarthy. I just think that his coaching choice is number one, say something about his ego. Okay. That's the number one problem. Number two, it's called organizational dysfunction. What does the owner do? They set the tone in many small ways for an organization.
But how do they win games? If it's so, organizationally dysfunctional, then how do they win the division?
Because first of all, it's the NFC East. There is a large degree, there's levels of it. There are certain organizations that are not going to win a Super Bowl because of the way they're built, and that's the Cowboys. It's hard to pin exactly what that is. The coaching hire is the number one thing, but there's something about that building. There's something that happens with Bill Belichick and the Patriots building that is not happening in the Cowboys building. I can't explain exactly what it is, and that's totally Jerry Jones.
They're not the Carolina Panthers. They're not the Browns. It's not the dysfunction for some of these other teams that's just right out there on the shirt sleeves because I think it's just Jerry Jones is the face of the team, so it gives you an easy target when things go wrong. But again, they have a home game against the Green Bay Packers where they're a 7.5-point favorite. What did Jerry Jones do to blow that? He didn't do anything. He's the owner. He can't. All he does is put them in a position to succeed, and the team blew it. You want to say the coaches? Okay, let's talk about that because you have to give him credit for hiring Jimmy Johnson, even if you also want to, bury Jerry Jones for firing Jimmy Johnson. They did win another Super Bowl with Barry Switzer. Okay, that didn't work out well.
Come on.
They go through what a lot of coaches and a lot of franchises do, which is a revolving door of coaches until they feel like they have some stability. Bill Parcells. But then they stick with Jason Garrett, I think, because they were trying to learn the lessons from before that, which was constantly churning through coaches is also not the answer. Somehow Jason Garrett also won a Coach of the Year there somewhere, which is crazy to me, but he did. I know they were 8-8. It was so frustrating. And now Mike McCarthy was a Super Bowl winning head coach who had done a lot with Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. It's not a flawed thought process to think that he could come in and do good things with Dak Prescott. And by the way, when Mike McCarthy took over the offense last year, the offense was better and Dak was an MVP candidate. So there's I think if Mike McCarthy, he probably wasn't the only team. He was going to coach again. There was no way Mike McCarthy was going to not have another head coaching job.
Well, now he's not.
Here's the thing. They could have had Bill Belichick, and I think people would have totally lambasted Jerry if he had gone for Bill Belichick right now.
No, they would have loved Bill Belichick. I think, first of all, they would not go for Bill Belichick because Jerry would not do that because he's Jerry Jones. And I think that would have been a great move. And I think Cowboys fans would have rejoiced with Bill Belichick.
Great move. You think Bill Belichick has lost
Yes.
every part of his fastball?
Yeah,
that
but he's
could
way better than
possibly
Mike
be.
McCarthy.
Okay, so we're asking the question, who's a better owner? Is it Jerry Jones or is it Mark Cuban? You've got the Dallas Mavericks on the doorstep here of getting back to the NBA Finals for the first time since Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah, I think we should have a panel of 4 entrepreneurs in front of us and present our cases.
Sharks.
I will present.
Can I give you Jerry Jones?
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think people come in front of Shark Tank and give a negative case, but that's all I'm doing. I just should show a picture of Dave Campo, and no one's going to know who that is. But I'm like, this is the kind of coach that Jerry Jones loves.
For every Dave Campo, I'll give you a Parcells.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got a Chan Gailey to your Parcells.
I know Chan Gailey. Don't I ever?
Yeah, you're going to have a hard time with the coach. And McCarthy, Mr. Watch Every Game in his 1 year off and study the NFL. I don't know if that's your poster boy.
Jerry can't help that he was just lying to him. I mean, the other...
You're making so many excuses for Jerry Jones. The guy, he had a sleepover with him. He couldn't tell he was lying.
The other part, too, I want to give Jerry Jones as an owner, I want to give them credit because he put the type of people in place. How often does this happen? And yeah, I know that Tony Romo and Dak Prescott aren't Patrick Mahomes and, Tom Brady. I get that. But these are guys who Romo's not even drafted and Dak Prescott's a 4th rounder. This is, getting a franchise quarterback before with Troy Aikman was because they had the number 1 overall pick. In some ways, it's so much easier to do that. The success and the sustained, playoff contender and all that stuff that they've been with these last 2 quarterbacks have been diamond into the rough guys. You got to give Jerry credit for that because he's the people who put the scouting department in place. And they've come up with 2 pretty awesome quarterbacks. Let's say if Dak Prescott hit the open market, he's getting a ton of money. I know we can nitpick about him. He's a good quarterback, and they found him really deep in the draft.
That's what you got? You got Dak Prescott.
That's just another cherry on the top of my defense of Jerry Jones.
I got Luka Doncic. I think I win that argument.
Okay, you got Luka. That's fantastic. He's definitely the best player in this series. There you go.
The best player in this series. He's arguably definitely one of the top 3 NBA players in the world.
And, it's taken a long time to figure out what to put around him, quite frankly. And they're lucky.
Long time. He's 25, and he's already been in Western Conference Finals, and now he's going to the finals.
That's what I'm saying. They're lucky that they finally took a big risk on Kyrie Irving when no one else was willing to, or very few teams. And they're finally putting the right team around him. They're lucky that Luka's so young.
Actually, I don't totally agree with that. It's totally side point. I feel like Luka's carrying anybody right now. Like you can put any 4 players around him, and he's going to single-handedly win this thing. Kyrie's great, but it's Luka, and more Luka. They got a Larry Bird type player, a Magic Johnson type player, and Luka Doncic. Now, is that a bit of luck? Yes, but
they had to make a trade for him.
Yeah. Yes, NBA, you're right there, but they definitely they had Dirk, and now they're going to Luka, and same reason you give Jerry credit for the quarterbacks. I clearly have on my side great players on the Mavs, and much better. Dirk and Luka is a different level than Dak and Tony Romo. If we're going to go down the player route.
855-212-4227. Cuban also let Steve Nash walk out the door.
Let Jalen Brunson walk out the door.
I mean, Nash ended up going on to win 2 MVPs. I love Brunson also. No. Well, he could end up winning an MVP. That's totally valid. You let Steve Nash walk out the door, and that was a huge mistake. Huge mistake.
Yeah.
It was.
How many rings is Steve Nash wearing?
Listen, you could have had more if Steve was still there.
They did let Jalen Brunson go, but his inability to create 2 basketballs, to play 2 basketballs at once, because I don't know how Jalen Brunson and Luka were going to do this. Superstar Jalen Brunson was not going to be the 29-point game scorer with Luka. Honestly, I understand. Jalen's meant to have his own team. I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't think that's a mistake because look where they are. They're going to the NBA Finals.
Let's put the poll out there. Who is the better owner, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban? Now, for people who may be shaking their fist at the radio, guys, Mark Cuban's selling the team. We know that. But as of right now, he still does own the Mavericks. So he's getting sort of the credit for this. But he is selling the team to the Adelsons, the casino magnates.
Right.
Out of Las Vegas.
But he still runs the basketball operations.
And it's like a prolonged handoff period that's going to happen. So Mark Cuban does get to have a big title with the Mavs right now. So he does get credit. 855-212-4227. You don't think the Joneses will ever sell?
No, not with Jerry Jones. There's no money on earth. You could offer him $50 billion. He would say, no way. What is Jerry Jones without the Cowboys? Just wander around his house all day in a robe.
He has a yacht. He could also wander around. 855-212-4227. All right, we get it going here. A little, just something we've been ruminating on as the Mavericks are, again, on the doorstep of going to the NBA Finals. Who's the better owner? Celebrity owner, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban? Your turn to weigh in. You can watch the show, youtube.com/InfinitySportsNet, twitch.tv/InfinitySportsNetwork.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie Perloff. It is a glorious time for Dallas sports fans. They have Dallas Stars possibly going to the Stanley Cup Final.
That was a tough one last night. But.
Yeah, they have the Rangers as defending champion, and the Mavs are on the doorstep of going back to the NBA Finals. Meanwhile, the Dallas Cowboys get all the headlines. But our debate today is who's a better owner, the Mavericks, Mark Cuban, or the Cowboys, Jerry Jones. I go Mark Cuban, and it's not even because Mark Cuban's so great, although he is the most probably famous NBA owner of our current generation. Yeah. And he's done a lot of really very smart things with that team, and he's kept them competitive, and he's all about winning. It's a negative on Jerry. Jerry is all about Jerry, and that's what I think has really doomed the Cowboys since Jimmy Johnson left the building in the 90s. And there's a lot of evidence. We see it every year, year after year, rinse, wash, repeat. Cowboys, a lot of hype, and there's something missing in that team. To me, it's Jerry Jones intervening in ways that he should not.
Yeah, I got to defend Jerry on this one because if you're good enough to win double-digit games, you're good enough to make the playoffs, that's all an owner can do is get you to the playoffs. He can't go out there and tackle Aaron Jones. He can't go out there and, try to make, stop Nick Bosa. Like, all the owner can do is try to put your team in the position to be a playoff team. It's harder to make the playoffs in the NFL than it is the NBA, and Jerry has kept this team relevant. And you can nitpick, but they're a 12-win team the last 3 years. That should be good enough to make you a Super Bowl contender, and they're not, and that's not Jerry's fault. At some point, the owner It stops being about the owner, and it starts being about the players and the coaches, and Jerry has done his job.
I don't understand, but why is this a definition of an owner? Like, if you get them in the playoffs, that's good enough, then the owner washes their hands. So the owners that win a bunch of Super Bowls and carry those Lombardi trophies around, they're not more excellent than the guys who lose in the wild card round? I'm not sure why this random line.
Well, I think because at some point, like you're talking about, if it's organizational dysfunction and that's something, and Jerry Jones has been standing in the way of the Cowboys winning a Super Bowl, but I just think that's like intellectually dishonest, because if he was really standing in the way, they wouldn't even be a playoff team. They wouldn't be a double-digit win team. The bad organizations we know and see. Carolina Panthers, David Tepper is a bad owner. We can see that. The Browns with the Haslams, they've been bad owners. We can see that. Jerry, you might not like his style, but the team gets to the playoffs. So if he was so awful and he was so toxic, they'd be a 5-win team every year. So
the thing about an owner is the one major decision they can make is hiring the coach. And Jerry, to his credit, made a brilliant hire when he bought the team.
Yeah, with Jimmy.
But since then, he has done the opposite, where the great owners, Robert Kraft hired Bill Belichick.
Parcells was a really good coach.
Well, yeah, but that was old Parcells. It was and they weren't that great. I mean, they didn't have that much success.
But you could understand why he would be hired, right?
Right. But then after Parcells, Jerry said never again. I'm never having a coach who's bigger than me in this building again. And he's been true to his word on that. Then, on the other hand, these great owners in the NFL, the Hunts, I don't know if they're great owners, but they sure as heck hired Andy Reid, and they've kept him around. So I think that this idea that just getting the playoffs is good enough for an owner, it's just not the way it works. I just think that there's a reason that all these other franchises are ascending and the Cowboys are not. And that reason, unfortunately, is Jerry Jones.
Leland is in Sacramento, wants to weigh in on this. Who's the better owner, Leland, Mark Cuban or Jerry Jones?
I got to go Jerry Jones. He is, the guy's 81 years old. And he is still relevant. You look at American sports, particularly NFL, and you think of all the personalities, who is relevant like Jerry Jones? No one. I mean, he has so many accomplishments. You could just list them. You can go on and on and on about him. And I don't even like Jerry Jones.
Like what accomplishments?
Well, he's a disruptor. I think that's part of it. If you want to go to the owner side, now you and I are taking away the business acumen part of this, but I do think they have Jerry to thank for the rise in like how much money the NFL is bringing in. I think Jerry Jones, as the most powerful owner in the NFL, has had something to do with that.
Also, too, I wanted to comment that there's a lot of drama on the West Coast. Are you guys read what's going on with the 49ers? They're almost like imploding right now, and it hasn't even started preseason yet.
Okay, the Brandon Ayuk contract situation, Christian McCaffrey not showing up to OTAs. We saw Brock Purdy didn't look great yesterday. What are we missing?
All of that. No, you're not missing anything.
Okay.
That's all of it. And
okay, good.
It's just too much.
Leland, it's May. Who cares? None of that means a single thing.
Don't listen to him, Leland. This is a big year for you guys.
It is May. Oh, my God. Call back in October, Leland. Call back before then, hopefully. But let's talk in October. You're not going to remember any of these stories.
About it. Yeah, I just think it's interesting what's going on, and they're imploding already.
Leland,
they're not imploding.
You should be very nervous, dude. Thank you
so
much for the phone call.
They're not imploding even 1%. There's no implosion.
I get it. It's 3:30 in the morning on the West Coast. If I'm Leland, I'm just laying awake at night, just under the covers, staring at the ceiling. What is this season going to be like?
Oh, they drafted this kid, Ricky Pearsall, apparently doesn't even need two hands to catch any pass. He's like the new Odell Beckham. He is on fire in practice. And as long as Nick Bosa's out there on the field, their defense is fine. There's no implosion. I mean, the only problem with this team is their defense got a little wonky last year. They're totally fine with or without Brandon Ayuk.
They just lost in overtime in the Super Bowl, and Kyle Shanahan had to ask Nick Bosa to show up to OTAs. You shouldn't have to ask your veterans to show up to OTAs when you lose like that. That everyone should be raring to go, OTAs, foaming at the mouth. Got to hit something, because you should still have that anger from what happened last Super Bowl. Bogus.
Can't hit in OTAs.
What's that?
Can't hit in OTAs.
You know what I'm saying.
No.
Some kind of inspirational speech, just showing up. You know, what do they say about life? Like 90% of it is showing up. That's how I got this job, just showing up one day.
They're favored in 17 football games.
Right. They play 17.
There are 17 games. And they actually had a fine offseason. And honestly, we'll get to Ayuk later, but I don't even care what's happening with Ayuk. Who's beating this team, Leland? Sorry. I don't mean to call you out. This is May headlines that are so ridiculous. Showing up to OTAs has nothing to do.
Listen,
it's the most overrated thing in the history of the NFL.
Of all people, you should understand what the 49er fan is up against. Your Philadelphia Eagles went to the Super Bowl.
Right.
They lost in a last-second situation where it could have gone either way, and you were robbed of a Super Bowl basically because of a defensive holding call. And then what happened the next year? You get out to this great start, but then what happened? An implosion happened because it is very, very hard to go back to the Super Bowl after you've lost it. And I think fans like Leland know that. And so that's why they could be favored in 17 games, but I've got mountains of history that will tell you they're not getting back to the Super Bowl.
They have Kyle Shanahan. We had Nick Sirianni. It's a different thing. Not only that, they keep on hanging around the Super Bowl, as Jerry Jones says, hanging around the rim. Mm-hmm. The Eagles they won it in 17. They got back last year. Their two situations have nothing to do with each other. The Niners are always there, and the only thing that really happened last year is for some reason like their defense was just missing something. They had Brock Purdy. They found a gem of a quarterback. Who apparently put on a bunch of muscle. This has been a positive offseason. I don't buy all this negative stuff around the Niners. People are inventing things here.
Leland, I get it, pal. I'd be very concerned. Andrew Bogusch has headlines for us. Good morning.
Good morning. Those headlines sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your home and auto. Save when you bundle. Get a quote at progressive.com.
Foaming at the mouth.
Some of us, I believe, still don't believe in Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, but nobody can question the love between Jason and Kylie Kelce. The original Kelce power couple had a date night last Saturday in Margate City along the New Jersey coast. And you've probably heard by now a woman approached them, asked for a picture, and did not take it well when the Kelces asked to be left alone.
Who you are. You'll never be allowed in this house. You'll never be allowed in this house. Say it. You're embarrassing yourself.
It has not
Who was who?
So the woman yelling "you will not be allowed back" is the woman who wanted a picture, and it has not been confirmed that she has the power to deny them entry to Margate City.
She's the queen. Of
exactly.
Yeah.
And then that's that's Kylie at the end saying, "I can smell alcohol on your breath. You're embarrassing yourself." Mayor Michael Collins offered an official public apology yesterday and offered a redo of date night to Jason and Kylie.
Wow.
It's a lot here. I think people like Kylie because of this.
They do.
Kylie has 100% Q rating.
Okay, can I just okay, sorry, go ahead.
Her commencement speech at Cabrini College is an all-timer. She's hysterical.
Yeah, and everyone loves her. I just would like to flip something just as a thought exercise. Say it's not Kylie Kelce, say it's Brittany Mahomes. I think people are like, just take the picture, you know, and everyone's calling Brittany everything in the book. And Kylie said, I don't want to take a photo with you. And I think sometimes, like, especially people like Pete, I think you would say, just take the photo, right? You're a celebrity, you're out and about, just take the photo. She didn't come up to him at dinner while they're sitting there at a table holding hands, gazing into each other's eyes. It was like at a parking lot, basically.
Yeah.
That feels like it's kind of fair territory to ask a famous person for a photo.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
But they're incorrigible.
Who?
The Kelces. It's
What?
I'm joking.
I thought you meant the photo.
Hey, Maggie.
the lady
joking.
is. The lady is too. And the lady is wrong. But the Kelces it's always a big thing with them. It's like it can never be just
walk
go
away.
out. Right.
Do you understand what happened here?
How about you be quiet, all right? You know what? Go ahead, Louis.
Yeah.
So they're on a date. They're out. A person comes to them. Somebody else films it and releases it. How is that about them making it a big deal? They didn't put it out there. They're not incorrigible.
They're incorrigible.
It is. I mean, they are everywhere now. You can't avoid this. Now, some of that is in part because of what they've brought to themselves. Like, this woman wants to take a picture with Kylie Kelce because now she knows who Kylie Kelce is.
Right.
I don't. Maybe 3 years ago this still happens. I know Jason Kelce is a Eagles legend even 3-4 years ago when they won a Super Bowl. So some of that attention, this comes with that territory, right?
Kinda.
If you want to be a part of the celebrity
Doing the
culture,
Netflix show or
you're doing
Apple,
Netflix shows.
whatever.
Like there's, they're very visible. This does kind of come with it, but I will say, like, Kylie Kelce looks like a straight badass to me. Like, I mean, first of all, it helps that she's tall, right? So
Yeah.
she's staring this woman
Towering
down,
over
being
this
like,
woman.
"What are you gonna do about it?" Basically, she looks awesome in this. I can't
But
say
again,
anything
if
bad
it was
about her.
Brittany Mahomes, I think that we'd be crushing her today, or the public would be crushing her.
I agree with that too. Which is,
And what did Brittany do?
I know.
She hasn't done anything that Kylie hasn't done. What she's got.
She was super annoying
Well,
in that
no,
Netflix
Brittany's
Okay,
done.
but I just haven't
spraying
watched.
beer on people.
Okay, but
Yeah.
but that was their home crowd. I mean, I get it, but there was the home crowd. It's not like she was doing it to the opposing crowd. It was a celebratory mood, is what I'm saying. The other part is, I just didn't watch the Kelce doc. I have no idea if Kylie was annoying in that.
Kelce, I didn't even know this is a Kelce. Oh, right, that Amazon show.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that either. But one thing about Brittany in the Netflix documentary, she's that person in the family who wants to take one more picture, and all Patrick wants to do is go home and they're like, one more picture, honey.
I know.
And
How dare
actually,
she?
the funny thing is, years later, you probably appreciate those extra pictures, but at the time, there's nothing more annoying than when someone in your family wants to do one more photo. Trust me, you have a son, Maggie. He's going to hate you for that holiday photo.
I don't take the photos. I told you I'm the least sentimental person you know. I always forget to take the photos, so it's not me. But like that's not a capital crime to ask to take a couple photos.
I don't know.
And she's actually, her and Taylor Swift have a handshake. I mean, it takes two to tango.
The only question though is if Kylie's right that this woman was belligerently drunk. I don't know how she acts for this question. It could have been a, "Hey, Kylie, you big jerk. Can you take a picture with me?"
We don't know.
Because this
is
escalated.
Margate we're talking about.
She's like, I'm a
escalated-
Cowboys
yes.
fan. Blah. Okay,
Yes,
who
Jersey
knows?
Shore. I mean, yeah.
All of a sudden, Snooki's there. It's weird.
So Kylie's from Narberth, Pennsylvania, 5 minutes away from where I grew up, and this is a tough town. I'm sort of half kidding, but
Yeah, I've been to your
Yeah,
hood.
where Kobe grew
let's
up.
not do
The
that.
rough
he's on the
streets of
good
Philly.
side.
So I'm from Marion, and
This
they're
is
from
exactly where
Narberth.
Will Smith grew up.
And we would call the people from Narberth Narbs, and it was like the meanest thing you could say to someone. You're a
There you go.
Narb. And then we'd get on the bus, and everyone would chant, "Narberth sucks. Narberth sucks."
Wow.
Yeah.
Like 80s high school
Oh,
comedy.
like Yeah, this was the 80s. Yeah, we are totally no, our Brit sucks. And then Kylie would. She definitely would. If I had chanted on the bus, she would have punched me right in the face.
She would have.
You wouldn't have chanted on the bus.
She's way tougher than me. But
glasses
she's also
or no glasses. She would have punched you in the glasses.
She's the field hockey coach at my former high school. Yeah, she's. I agree with EJ. She's a badass. I'm a huge fan.
Well, no one's going to ask her for pictures now.
Can she get on the field and execute the tush push, which is my big concern now that Jason's retired?
You're going to sign her next?
Oh, we need somebody to do the tush push, and she seems like the best candidate.
Kylie became a winner for me when she showed up to that Super Bowl wearing a Cincinnati shirt, being like, sorry, bud, I'm not wearing no Chiefs gear. I was like, you know what? That's a real fan. Forget about this guy, your husband, your dopey husband who's jumping out windows wearing Chiefs overalls, he's the Eagles legend.
Yeah, fraud.
Like that's Kylie, a real Philadelphia woman being like, no, I'm an Eagles ride or die. Okay, my brother-in-law's in Super Bowl. That's good for you. I'll wear red, but I'm only going to rep your college and not repping your NFL team. That was hard.
There's got to be more happening.
Yeah, without an NBA playoff game last night, some of us were asleep by 8:30. Others were glued to Oilers Stars.
Harley this time shoots, and that was blocked in front. And it's Connor Brown, 2-on-1 shorthanded. Brown in over the line, left wing, centers, one-timer, score! Matthias Janmark has given Edmonton its first lead of the night, 3-2, shorthanded.
Perloff, you watched the whole game when I finished the update here?
I told Maggie I have dangerous hockey knowledge this morning.
I know, you got to hold it, though. We don't have enough time to get in all your takes.
The stick work of Leon Draisaitl. What do you want to talk about? Where do you want to go?
It's your show.
I went to an Edmonton, Las Vegas game Super Bowl week, and I said, I'm an Oilers fan. Connor McDavid's my guy. Ride or die with McDavid. So I'm happy that they even up the series. Let's go Oilers. That's all I have to say.
And you went away for 4 months, and now you're back.
Usual pattern. McDavid had 2 assists in this 5-2 win on home ice, and I guess the series is tied at 2. They're back in Dallas tomorrow night. The Mavs and T-Wolves are back in Minnesota for their Game 5 tonight. Dallas now listing Derek Lively at his neck sprain as questionable. Last night was the NCAA deadline for underclassmen to back out of the NBA draft. Guard Caleb Love returning to Arizona. Alex Caravan will go back to UConn and look for a three-peat. So Brittany Enescu had 22.6 rebounds, 9 assists in the Liberty's 81-78 home win over the Mercury. And Gabby Douglas withdrew from the U.S. Gymnastics Championships with an ankle injury yesterday. That means she will not make the Olympic team for a third time. Guys, back to you.
Bogusch, thank you. Another NFL team that should be very worried about who's not at OTAs. Plus, you can weigh in on our question today, which is, who is the better sports owner? Is it Jerry Jones or is it Mark Cuban, the 2 celebrity owners out of the city of Dallas? We take your phone calls at 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hyundai 2024 Santa Fe, equipped for adventure with capable features like available H-Track all-wheel drive and standard third-row seating. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. Question for you today: who's the better owner, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban? You got two celebrity owners in Dallas. High hopes for the Cowboys after 3 12-win seasons in a row, and of course you got the Mavericks on the doorstep here of getting back to the NBA Finals. Rich is in California. Good morning, Rich.
Morning. I think it's Mark Cuban, and because I think that coaching stability has a lot to do with a winning organization. Mm-hmm. And if I'm a coach, there's a certain emasculation that occurs when you become the Cowboys coach, because you've got Jerry Jones literally standing over your shoulder looking at every move that you make. Yes. And that, to me, makes it a very, very difficult process to keep it.
Wait, Rich, I just got to ask you, though. You understand where Mark Cuban sits, right, when he watches games, and the fact that he travels on the road, basically almost every road game. You know where he sits, right? Sits on the bench. No. He sits right there with the Mavericks. I mean, Jerry is very much involved, but Mark Cuban is also very much involved in basketball.
Yeah, but you're not necessarily hearing Mark Cuban go to the media, or maybe I should say taking media suggestions that certain coaches ought to be fired, or certain coaches did this, or why did you do this? Why did you run this particular play because I wouldn't do it that way.
You know for sure Mark Cuban doesn't do that?
I don't know. I'm literally not sitting there next to him.
Right.
But I've never heard him actually go to the media
right.
and have his own TV show and sit there and explain how he would do it differently.
Okay. I mean, Rich, fair. Mark Cuban has never met a camera he didn't like. Now, he doesn't generally come out and say negative things against the Cowboys, but Jerry puts his spin and tries to put his positive spin on stuff too. I don't really see a lot of Jerry second guessing what the Cowboys are doing. He'll acknowledge when it needs to be acknowledged, but he's very positive. He's positive about Dak Prescott. He's positive about Mike McCarthy, and he's stuck with these coaches through thick and thin. He's stuck with Jason Garrett. I mean,
I've seen Jerry rip things that happen on the field after a bad loss before. He'd be like, "We got to do better at defense or something."
And
like, he's not always
Mark Cuban
positive.
has never said something like that.
Mark Cuban is Jerry Jones light. He is. I disagree to Lowe's sense that he is in front of the microphone a lot,
yes.
and he does talk about the X's and O's. Like he'll get in there and he'll argue with officials. He's famous for that. I think he does it a little less now, but he used to get fined monthly for screaming at the officials. So he is also very interventionist. I agree they have a lot in common in that area.
You can go vote at Maggie and Pearl on Twitter if you'd like to. Who's the better owner, Mark Cuban or Jerry Jones? Okay, we should talk about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase because these are two also very famous, very impactful wide receivers who are not at OTAs. So T. Higgins, let's hear from him. He was on I Am Athlete's Behind the Drive. So this is basically him driving somewhere and the camera's on him, like they said. He says his future, it's murky, and what it would be like to leave Cincy.
Obviously, I don't know what the situation would be right now, but it'd be bittersweet, I guess you could say.
Well, but dramatic music definitely drives the point home for you.
Wow, man, I was getting in my feels on that.
He also says he wants to be a Bengal, but he understands that might not happen.
I'd definitely love to be here, you know what I'm saying? But if that's not the situation, then that's not the situation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a rare thing where a guy basically asked for a trade twice in the same offseason, asked for a trade, then sort of was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to be here. And then there were reports around the draft that he asked for a trade again.
I like T. Higgins, but it's funny, this story is being framed that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are holding out. These two players are not the same to me. You can definitely lose Higgins and continue to be elite. Jamar Chase is just a different tier to me. T. Higgins is the B tier. I put him right with Brandon Ayuk. Very good receivers, but not fundamental game-changing receivers like Jamar Chase. To me, Jamar Chase is on that Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams level. So I understand why they're playing hardball with Higgins. I mean, it makes perfect sense, and I understand it's frustrating as a player, and Higgins has every right to be upset here because he's done a great job for that team.
Yep.
But you have to be realistic about the way the cap works today. Can you really pay both those receivers at the top market that they want? Probably not.
Well, I think that a player like Higgins would then say, well, if you're not going to pay me, trade me so that someone else, like, he's not a number one, I'll give you that, but he's like right on he's like a 1B. Like a 1B.
But I don't think
lots of teams would love to have him.
With his contract situation, I'm not sure the offer was out there that really made it worth it for the Bengals. Why not just keep it for 1 year and go for it and then let him go and get a comp pick? I'm not sure. Was anyone offering?
Could franchise tag him?
Were we sure that? Oh, yeah, they could do that too. Were we sure that someone was offering a first-round pick for T. Higgins? I'm curious. I would love to know in reality what calls they got for him.
And then Jamar Chase is the other thing. I don't know how, if at all, the Bengals were surprised by Jamar Chase not coming to OTAs. Again, it is voluntary, but young players generally show up to this kind of thing, especially now that Joe Burrow's healthy. You would think you'd want to be, and listen, they've got all the chemistry in the world, but you think it's like, all right, we got our quarterback back. He's done dealing with this wrist injury. Like, here we are. We want to get back to the Super Bowl.
What is the
optics?
Here's the issue. What is the position that's holding out? Some wide receivers everywhere are not going to OTAs. So I think they're trying to get their money now. And I think that's smart because I think the money's going to go down. There's just too many good receivers now. Yep. So we got CD, Jefferson, the two Bengals guys, Ayuk.
Well, not all of them are not at OTAs, but you're talking about who want new contracts.
Yeah.
I thought CD Lamb was in and out. No?
Yeah, I
Was
think
he gonna
almost
show
all
up?
those guys are.
Maybe not.
I'm not sure any of those guys are at OTAs. I'll double check that. But basically, they're all in the same position as Higgins, where they want their Amon-Ra St. Brown $30 million plus, and Justin Jefferson wants even more. And I get it why teams are not paying this. I mean, there's only so much cap space.
855-212-4227. Okay, coming up, we hit old school, new school. It's old school, new school week here. The Maggie and Perloff Show. Got a fun one for you next. Which side will you be on? Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sportsnet.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
All week around here, we've been doing old school versus new school, and that continues today. Pete, hit the music, sir.
It's Maggie and Perloff's Old School, New School.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. On Monday, we brought you old school running backs versus new school quarterbacks. Yesterday, we brought you the Shaq and Kobe Lakers versus the Steph and Clay Golden State Warriors. And today, for our old school versus new school Perloff, we bring you baseball's steroid era versus the modern era. So let's rewind to what it sounded like when guys were roided up and hitting dingers.
Down the left field line. Is it enough? Gone! There it is! 62! Touch first, Mark. You are the new single-season home run king. And a high fly ball belted right center field. There it goes, number 500. Sammy Sosa earns that ticket to Cooperstown.
And Bonds hits one high. Hits it deep. It is out of here. 7:56.
Well, not so fast on Sosa going to Cooperstown. But at the time, that did sound like it was right. So this is the old school. That would be the steroid era versus the new school. Here's what baseball sounds like today.
Ohtani's ready. Trout's ready. 3-2. He struck him out. Ohtani strikes out Trout, and Japan's back on top of the baseball world.
High fly ball, deep left. There it goes, soaring into history. He's done it. He has done it. 62. Aaron Judge is the American League single-season home run leader.
It's happened. The Texas Rangers win the World Series.
Okay, Perloff, old school versus new school today. What do you got, the old school steroid era or the modern era? Go ahead.
Everything we saw the steroid era was fake, and it's still 100 times better than today's baseball game. The national excitement of Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire chasing the home run record was incredible. The verbal linguistics to say Aaron Judge was the American League home run record winner or whatever that he tried to say was ridiculous. Nobody cares about home runs anymore. The steroid era ruined it. I'm sorry. It's the steroid era's fault. But right now, modern baseball just does not have the sizzle that you had during that steroid era. Is it fair? No. Is it, you look from an ethical standpoint, does it make any sense? No. But it was just so much fun back then. And now, unfortunately, baseball has really never recovered from the fact that they uncovered all the cheating that was going on. Maybe if they just turned a blind eye, it would still be as exciting. But the reality is Sosa, McGwire, Bonds, that was a peak for baseball, and it was thrilling.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to go with the modern era here because you're right. The highs of the steroid era can only be matched by the lows of the aftermath. You know, it's like coming off of a drug, you know, where you're so high and then you get so low, and look at the damage that it did to the sport, a sport that we all love. Meanwhile, give me the modern era where, listen, we never know what guys are on, but the changes that baseball has made, I can feel good about these changes. I feel good when I'm watching these guys, and I don't have to bury my head in the sand. Again, I'm not naive to think that guys are still trying to cheat, and the Astros and stuff like that. But here's the thing. At least I feel like there's a mechanism in place that's trying to catch them, just like every other sport. So you feel like what you're watching is a lot more on the level. And give me the rule changes that they've updated here. Give me a pitch clock.
Love it.
Give me the runner on second base starting in the 10th inning, which I know is controversial, but I love that too.
Yeah.
I don't want to burn a bullpen out in May because you got all these crazy extra inning games. Give me, every rule change they have, basically. The mound visits, everything's faster. And I just love that about baseball because they recognized that they needed a change, and the product has been really, really good.
Well, I think a lot of that slow pitching stuff came after the steroid era, too. Like, they started to just grind the game to a halt. So I agree with you. All those rules are good.
Yeah.
Big fan of them. But you're sort of picking around the margin now. The reality is just baseball has not recovered its place. And that's part of being exciting, is when everyone's into it and you go to the proverbial water cooler and you say, did you see that game last night? Nobody's doing that right now. They do it locally, but nobody's doing it nationally, where you had to break into programming. Really, I mean, I know you did for Aaron Judge.
Yep,
but
they broke into college football programming for Aaron Judge games.
It was so much bigger deal when it was Sosa McGuire. It was the story.
I know. And the next time we saw all those people was dragged in front of Congress. And, it's like, yeah, you're just paying the price for that. And again, we were all super naive to think that these guys weren't on something. When you look back at it now, how cartoonish does everybody look? And it looks so silly.
There are a lot of big players right now. You're saying we're less naive?
They've always been big, though. It's not like Aaron Judge.
Get
go back
out of here.
and look at Aaron Judge in college. He looks exact same size. Giancarlo Stanton, they look exact same size.
Okay.
It's not their heads are getting bigger. Like Barry Bonds is literally this hat size.
Well, Bonds got 100 on the test. He went too far, but I think you don't think that they're on something these days, these players?
But at least I feel better about it.
You feel a little better about it.
Because they weren't even testing back then. And here's the other part about this. We're talking about old school versus new school. Would you rather have baseball's steroid era or the modern era, what we're seeing today? I at least think that you watch that steroid era and it was all like built on like a lie. It was all built on a lie.
Oh, yeah.
And
some of the best things are.
That's maybe like your motto for life.
Yeah. No, I can't argue on that. Definitely, looking back, we were fools.
Right.
But it was a fun ride anyway.
And we cherry picked like the Bonds and McGuire and Sosa, and those guys would have been really good no matter what. But the sport, if we had kept the steroid era going, and if that's the golden era, it's not who's actually the better baseball player. It's just who had the better doctor, who had the better concoction of stuff, because that's all it is. You know?
I do feel like it was an even playing field if everybody was on it.
But not everybody was on it. What did they say, about 40%, something like that? Listen, I think there are guys who actually weren't on it. I don't think Ken Griffey Jr., your favorite player, I don't think he was on steroids. I don't think Jeter was.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
Well, Jeter definitely not. And that's why he could only hit those short porch home runs to right.
I mean, I just as confidently as you can say, we can't say 100% either way.
Jeter would have been much better player.
But I don't think Ken Griffey was either.
I don't think
Mariano
Griffey was
Rivera was.
Well, pitching's different. But I think for the home run guys, I don't necessarily agree it was just about having better drugs, because a lot of guys had access to this. And, honestly, like, we're not sure that there's not something out there that's avoiding the test. It's really hard to say right now. Either way, I think you have to enjoy sports. You have to sort of put your head in the sand a little bit. I mean, what do you think is going on in the NFL right now? You think those guys are clean? I have no idea. But regardless, the debate is which is more exciting, old school with the home runs or new school with sort of a more balanced play. There's a lot of motion going on right now. That's
so
fun.
Much action. And you got Shohei. And Shohei is going to pitch again. I know there's been some questions about whether or not.
Why?
He's recovering because he's getting paid $700 million, and that's to pitch and to hit.
Yeah, but why would you... that, by the way, that's another great debate. Why would you risk losing the best single hitter in all of baseball to pitch? What's the point?
Because he might close out a World Series for you.
He's about to win his third. He's probably going to win 3 straight MVPs as a hitter. That's incredible. Why would you risk losing that?
Well, because I'm not thinking about what I'm risking. I'm thinking about what I gain. What do I gain if Shohei Ohtani, and we're talking about what was better, steroid era, old school versus the modern era, new school. Yeah. And I think what Shohei's doing is going to lead to more people doing it, by the way. And you're telling me that Shohei Ohtani hitting a home run in a game in a World Series Game 6 and then coming in to close out that game is not going to be one of the most exciting things we've ever seen? I'll take every one of Bonds' home runs. That would pale in comparison if Shohei's able to do that. And I think it's going to happen with the Dodgers. Not this season, but in the future.
No way.
It's just the Angels never got to the playoffs, so we never got to see it. But EJ played the highlight of the World Baseball Classic. So that's unreal stuff.
Basically, you got Shohei now, and he's not going to pitch. So you have a guy who can do 2 things. He's only going to do one. The Dodgers be crazy to the guy with major elbow. How many kind of surgeries has he had on his elbow? There's
2.
no way they're going to risk losing the best hitter in all of baseball. He's incredible. By the way, did you see what he did last night?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Dodgers. That was like the 5th most interesting thing that happened in that game yesterday.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
That's something. That's really a Mets bottom out. The fact that the 5th most important thing is Shohei's homer.
You need one player to save the game right now is Shohei.
He's not saving it. He's just elevating it.
What else you got?
I'll give you Aaron Judge. I'll give you the Yankees right now. Juan Soto on the Yankees. This is like old school. This feels like old school Yankees actually bringing in the biggest hitters in Major League Baseball to have this murderer's row lineup.
Does anyone outside of New York care right now?
About the Yankees? Yeah, the Yankees are always.
Do you think anyone's talking about Juan Soto anywhere right now?
Yes.
I don't. I
he
don't.
might top Shohei's $700 million if he keeps hitting like that.
Honestly, I do. I think you're misreading the country on that one. I do not think there's a lot of buzz around these stories.
So here's the question for you: old school versus new school. What did you have? The steroid era in baseball or the modern era in baseball? Let's hit Chris. He's in Oregon. Good morning, Chris.
Hey, good morning. So, first of all, I would take Mark Cuban over Jerry Jones. Mark Cuban, even when he's sucking up all the oxygen in the room, somehow it still feels appropriate. When Jerry Jones talks, in my psyche, I know I'm listening to somebody who's super successful, but after he's done talking, I'm like, what did he just say? So, I don't know. I think Mark Cuban
is what he is.
Yeah. So anyway, just kind of weird there. But a steroid era, I would take the steroid era over the new era, of course, just way more entertaining. But also, if you never saw Barry Bonds play live, man, you could not pitch to that guy.
Yeah.
You couldn't pitch to him. He would hit everything out of the park. It was ridiculous. And it also highlights, you guys were kind of getting to this a little bit, how good the people were that weren't taking steroids, right? Like, I think of Ichiro, man. I mean, that guy was sick, amazing, right? I mean, that he was, maybe he was on the later end of that era, but yeah, all the guys that weren't taking steroids, that we think weren't taking steroids, at least, Ken Griffey Jr., Jeter, I mean, they were amazing to be as impressive they were in that era.
Chris, thank you so much for the phone call. Chris referenced another question we asked earlier today, which is who is the better owner, Mark Cuban or Jerry Jones, which we can get back to with the Mavericks on the doorstep of the finals, and Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones. These are 2 very famous owners. That's interesting that the steroid era is better, not just because the guys on steroids were doing fun things and hitting massive home runs, but also because it elevated the other guys who are not on steroids, like Ken Griffey Jr. and Jeter.
Everything was heightened during that time. I think the problem with new school baseball, too, is like, what is new school baseball? What do you mean? I mean, Shohei is sort of an anomaly. What is the game today? I love all these.
It's a great product, I think. And here's the thing about baseball. I think it is. I know it is. But here's the problem I think that baseball is having. It's just everything is in the shadow of football right now. Everything is in the shadow.
But how did baseball let that happen?
Well, I think a couple things. I think football had this sort of meteoric rise because I think fantasy football really helped that a lot. I think that loosening up the rules a little bit where the quarterbacks are now throwing for 5,000 yards and there was so much more scoring. And I think baseball was a little late to some of the rule changes that they needed to make, which was speeding up the game and trying to get a little bit more in line with like a younger audience and a more diversified audience.
What do you mean by more diversified?
Like people have way more things to do. You just have more options of what you want to watch these days.
Yeah, I just still think like it's really hard to pin down exactly what is today's game. I understand all the rule changes. Like, you could say the steroid era. You could say you say 80s baseball, something's evoked. You say modern baseball. We haven't really had that dynasty yet. You didn't have the Yankees of the 90s. Like, I just think that there's missing something, and maybe that'll come along. Maybe you need a great team. Maybe you really need a transcendent player like Shohei. There's definitely something a little bit missing right now that might happen. But I mean, last year, I'm sure the World Series was like the lowest rated of all time because there's just like they're missing something extra to grab you.
Yeah, I think they're trying a lot of stuff, though. I mean, I actually liked it when the wild card was just one game. I thought that was really fun. Now it's best 2 out of 3. I also think if it's Yankees Dodgers in the World Series this year, I do think that would be a bit of a shot in the arm for the sport.
Right, because those are teams you definitely count on come postseason. Those two
I'm just
teams.
saying, it was a little tougher last year because, fantastic for the Rangers and they win their first World Series, but they're third banana probably in their own city, compared to the Mavs and the Cowboys. And then you had the Diamondbacks it's just a small market.
Well, that's one of the problems with baseball is you can be an amazing 108 win team like the Dodgers and come playoff time, that might not mean much.
Yeah.
You can't really design getting those glamour teams in there.
We're talking about old school steroid era versus the modern day baseball era. And Jim is in the chat, youtube.com/Infinity Sportsnet. Says the 94 baseball players strike didn't help. Baseball kind of had 2 things that really turned people away.
Yeah.
And to football's credit, the unsavory things that have happened to that sport haven't really turned people away for good. I think a lot of people are turned off by the strike and people were turned off by the steroid era, right? And had trouble finding their way back to the sport, where football, they've found their way back to the sport after concussion scandals and hiding those, effects. The Ray Rice stuff, I think people did the domestic violence. They have come back to the sport from that. Colin Kaepernick, they have come back to the sport, whether it turned you off on either side.
I don't know if there's a comeback. I don't know if anyone really left.
Or they threatened to leave and didn't actually leave.
I mean, I think the media was into a lot of that stuff. It was funny. I remember there was a lockout in football, 2010 or 11, and a lot of media writers were like, this is the end of football. And I was saying to myself, they're not missing a regular season game.
No.
What does a single fan care about any of this stuff?
No, it was just a money thing, and they didn't end up missing any games. So,
and then the ratings were gigantic that year.
As opposed to the baseball where a World Series is canceled.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. Ken Griffey Jr. helped bring it back, but then that's probably why they needed the steroid era and turned the blind eye. So you're right. The steroid era, I'm not defending it all. It was not ideal. But to me, this is shortcomings of the modern era. They really they're working on it, but they have not gotten their identities to sport yet.
855-212-4227. So you could go vote. Maggie and Perloff, old school versus new school. Today we tackle baseball. What was better, the steroid era or the modern era? You can weigh in. Again, you want to watch the show, youtube.com/Infinity Sportsnet, twitch.tv/Infinity Sports Network. Coming up, we get the resolution maybe to one of the stories that has captivated us over the last 2 weeks. Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining.
Manny and EJ, they're diehard Knicks fans, living in the Big Apple. They're part of the grand plan, but they just witnessed the crushing defeat. 76ers taking the victory, man. That's hard to beat. Sitting in the studio talking about the game, Maggie and Perloff, it ain't all the same. Perloff's a Philly fan. It's hard to stand when your team's on top and your heart's in your hand. Man, Manny and EJ, they lost and confused. Knicks played hard, but it wasn't what they used to. Every missed shot, every turn, all they saw leaving them shocked. They can't believe what they're in for. Manny.
Peter Berardi, he made a prediction, said that he gonna win. Celtics got no conviction, but now he's hiding, running away, won't own up to his words. He faced the dismay. He thought Miami would rise like the sun in the sky, but now he's got excuses, got no alibi. He thought the Heat had it, it was a sure bet, but they couldn't handle Boston, not just yet. Peter Berardi, where you at
All right, back on Maggie and Perloff. We got a lot going on today. Old school versus new school. Are you a fan of the steroid era of baseball or whatever it is they got going on today? I picked the steroid era. Maggie likes the bigger bases and pitch clock, which I get. I'm not ripping up.
Listen, I can't claim like sports and morality is a tough thing to get yourself in. That could be a real quagmire, but I like that. I feel like at least I'm watching guys who aren't just willy-nilly getting shot up, in the clubhouse like they were in the 90s.
Yeah, and you're also praying for a Yankees-Dodgers World Series so you get those TV ratings back.
Yeah.
Good luck with that because you can really count on those clubs come October. I'm going big story. It's Sosa McGuire. You know what? Yes, it was all a lie, but it was sure a very fun lie.
It was all based on a lie, and then the aftermath was as depressing as can be.
And kind of funny. The congressional hearing was high comedy.
Comedy?
Mr. Palmieri. Yeah, it was the Congress trying to pronounce baseball players' names was beautiful.
Sammy Sosa forgetting how to speak English.
Yeah,
that was also a funny one.
I forgot about Mr. Palmieri.
Was it? Yeah. And we used to play that clip at Dan Patrick Show all the time. Sammy Sosa and Mr. Palmieri. And they tried to do that McNamee guy's name was crazy. They had no idea.
Where's that guy? Probably in a hole somewhere.
Politicians mispronouncing sports players' names is always funny.
Well, I wanted to do this idea. I think it's $1 million idea for people like us to be sports consultants for politicians. Now, we can't help whatever they say off the cuff. Sometimes that gets politicians in trouble. But I'd love to be a sports consultant for a politician. It's like, hey, I've got a ribbon cutting in St. Louis today. Can you give me a couple lines that I can say about the Cardinals or something? And I'll write you a couple things. You cannot rely on a low-level staffer for this type of stuff. You need professionals like us who have been in the business for a long time, because these politicians get stuff wrong, and sports is the biggest layup you can have as a politician, and they get it wrong so often.
This falls under the same thing as newscasters and Jeopardy contestants. They can handle like the tiniest country in the middle of nowhere or the most obscure Broadway fact, but they can't tell the difference between the LA Kings and the Sacramento Kings or what's a hockey puck and what's a baseball. It's remarkable. Like the silence of Jeopardy questions that are about sports when no one rings in.
It's so true.
Or says Baby Ruth. Like I got nothing.
Oh, forget about the errors. Yeah. I mean, I worked at a news station here in New York, and anchors who Bogus Point can pronounce any country, any town, can break down any single thing. I give Michelle Wills a hockey name. And
well, to be fair, hockey is like a PhD level.
I know, but then it would be a Russian oligarch or a Russian mobster, and she'll get that right.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it's like a mental block. When I love my news anchors at Spectrum New York 1, but there's a mental block when they know it's a sports story that they can't get over, and I don't get it.
They just don't care. I think the funny part about the Jeopardy thing is when you know from the first moment, you're like, if you can't get the $200 clue, there's no shot you're getting the $1,000 clue. Like, if you have no idea who Peyton Manning is, you've got nothing on Roger Staubach. We know this. Ironically, the only categories we'd probably do well in.
Yeah,
although you
true.
did Sports Jeopardy when Dan was doing
God, I know. And I lost both times. I didn't know the final Jeopardy question, and it still haunts me.
What was the final Jeopardy?
Who's the all-time leading three-point shooting percentage guy? And I don't know why I didn't know this, but I didn't.
Who'd you say, Ray Allen?
Nope. I said Steve Nash, and I had the wrong Steve.
It's Kerr, right?
Yeah. Who got that, Paulie?
No, nobody got that one. And then the other one I got wrong was the who was posthumously honored in Yankees Monument Park, and I'm not great on the Yankees.
Oh, Thurman Munson.
No, I said Thurman Munson.
I would have got that wrong too.
It was Roger Maris.
Oh.
And I should have known that. Paulie knew that one because he had just seen the Billy Crystal movie 61, which I had seen too, but I didn't stay to the very last scene when they posthumously honored Roger Maris.
You got up to go to the bathroom and missed the part you needed.
Yeah. Anyway, but Sports Jeopardy, I'm pretty good at Jeopardy. I'm good at doing what EJ did right there. When someone says the answer, I say it right after. Said I knew that one. Did you guys do that when you watched Jeopardy?
On the waterfront. I knew that one. I knew that one.
On the waterfront, you got it.
Yeah.
Bang, got it. Even though it's like
I knew it. I knew it was a fellow.
I'll give myself 600. Okay, I'm not the only one who did it.
Have you guys watched Jeopardy, like a new episode recently?
Yeah, with Ken Jennings.
But like, there's like a new way to play the board. Like when I watched it, you started at the top and you worked your way down. Now they work from the bottom up.
I know it's the sports gambler who was responsible for that.
It freaks me out.
James Holzhauer.
Yeah.
He's a big sports bettor and a big sports fan, obviously, and he's the one who started. He was like the money ball.
And they jump from category to category. I'm used to you stay in that column, you finish, and then you move on. They're going across the bottom. It's too much for me. No thanks.
It's the analytics game.
The one analytics I don't like. I'm all for them except at Jeopardy.
They always daily double, these guys. They're huge risk takers. So it's not like, oh, you get the daily double. You're like, oh, I'll bet, $1,000, $1,500. They're always doing the whole thing.
Don't they all say that getting the daily doubles is the key to winning?
Yep. Again, they've moneyballed this thing. Like they've precision.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really have that many. It helps to know the trivia too.
Yeah, you got to get the answer right.
But the key is, if you watch it, and I know this, like the key is you got to hit the button at the exact right time. Because it's not who hits it first, who gets in the window. That's who wins in Jeopardy. Because everybody knows most of the answers.
Honestly, the best moment from Jeopardy is from Groundhog Day, when he's watched the same episode every single day, and he's sitting there in the parlor with the old people, and he's like, Mackinac Island. I was like, he knows everything.
The movie reference for Jeopardy that I always think about is White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah, well, Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Rosie Perez.
Sorry, not Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah. That would have been a different movie.
A whole different movie, yeah.
Woody Harrelson is in love with Rosie O'Donnell.
Different motivation.
Sorry. Rosie Perez, big sports fan in her own right. All right, Bogusch, you've got details on the story we've been following since 2 Fridays ago.
Yes, and Pete might not want to listen to this part. All charges against Scottie Scheffler dropped yesterday, with County Attorney Mike O'Connell saying that all available evidence corroborates Scheffler's explanation of his arrest 2 Fridays ago outside the PGA Championship. It was all just a huge misunderstanding, miscommunication. Now, before that announcement yesterday afternoon, there was video released of Scheffler speaking with other cops after the arrest, still at the scene. At one point, Scheffler says he was impatient, afraid of being late for his tee time when he made the decision to get out of the line of traffic and turn into the course. All of that led to this exchange between a reporter and Scheffler's lawyer, Steve Romines.
The statements that Scottie made after the arrest don't seem to fully align with what you're saying right now. He admits that he got impatient and went too far.
No, here's what happened, is he is being interrogated after the most stressful situation of his life, right? And the officer is actually asking him leading questions and trying to get him to agree with them.
Romines kept going.
That's why you don't talk to the police, because they are going to try to put words in your mouth. And that's exactly what they did.
But that was after he read his Miranda rights. He didn't
have
to speak.
Of course, he didn't have to speak. But again, he asked to talk to the officer. He wanted to explain to him what happened. However, they are trying to get him to confess to something that he didn't do.
I don't know if this guy's an actual good lawyer because we didn't know him before 2 Fridays ago, but he sounds like a guy I'd want to defend me.
I'm surprised
in
he didn't
a similar situation.
give the number out. And by the way, if you've been the victim of a slip
Reminds
and fall,
Reminds LLC.
it's 1-800-GOT-LAW.
This is after he gets to go home, right?
What's that?
This soundbite was after he.
It was yesterday.
So after everything was dropped.
Yeah.
So that's his response. So after every, you would think that's it. Let's just wipe our hands and let's go home. Instead, you got to act like a jerk. And with this reporter, just why don't you
Wait,
just
Pete,
relax?
hold on.
What?
You're a big wrestling fan, professional wrestling.
No,
the guy cut a promo after it was on.
Great, wonderful. How about you just you take it back a notch after you've been cleared and just move on to the next thing. I don't get why he had a fight with the reporter.
Can you imagine Pete watching A Few Good Men? He's like, the courtroom scene happens. Like, you want the truth? You can't handle this. She's like, man, I feel like Tom Cruise really should have dialed it back.
Relax. Relax, Cruise.
It's an old man. Take it easy.
You want me on that wall? You need me on that wall? Do we need the hyperbole?
Pete, I don't want to get political here, but don't you think that somebody should call out the police if they made a bad arrest here?
Well, but it's not like he was just sitting in his car and they pulled him out of the car. You know,
that's what the video shows.
I mean,
but yeah, that's visually exactly what
it's not
happened.
like he was in the traffic and someone just yanked him out of the car.
Show me video that shows anything other than that. Anything. Why'd they drop all charges, including the misdemeanors?
All I am saying is just move on. It's not. You
don't have to take a victory lap, is what you're saying.
No, come on.
You don't have to rub it in. He's saying the lawyer went a little too over the top.
All right, you fine. I said before that this is probably a big misunderstanding. Just move on from it. We have to have a parade for him now.
Nobody's asking for a parade. But
if it was a different circumstance, there'd be a lot of reasons to stay on this. I mean, this cop does not seem like a good cop. Based on the fact that he was doing donuts in a parking lot.
Go after the cop then.
Yeah, they should.
That's a whole thing.
That guy should be off the street. That seems fairly obvious.
Take him off the street.
Yeah, I think they want to take him off the street. They're trying to find a way.
All right.
You don't think?
They've apparently agreed.
He is off the street, right?
No, I don't think he got suspended. I think he just got like a
paper
reprimand and had to talk to somebody.
His fifth, right?
Something like that. But I mean, like, didn't he lie on a police report? Is that not a crime? I mean, he's like, there's literally no video, no witness that says the car hit him, knocked him over, dragged him. And that's what they wrote on an official police report.
He's still claiming that he did get dragged. So he made a statement yesterday that maybe there's some kind of, he goes, to be clear, this is the statement from the police officer, detective. To be clear, I was drugged by the car. I went to the ground and I received visible injuries to my knees and wrists. I'm going to recover from it and will be okay. This is the extent of my commentary on the incident. So he did say that. Then he also hit us with a PS after the statement that said, yes, the department does have us buy freaking $80 pants. This is the full quote. To those concerned, they were indeed ruined, but Scottie, it's all good. I never would have guessed I'd have the most famous pair of pants in the country for a few weeks because of this. Take care and be safe.
Why does everybody seem like losers in this? Everybody.
That's a victory lap. Trying to make
Cop,
jokes.
Lawyer was doing a little much, but whatever. Scheffler seems fine. I didn't like how he acted the day it happened. I think since then he's been fine. But I don't know. It just doesn't feel like there's really any winners in this. I mean, that's a ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
And I mean, in terms of like whether he got dragged or not,
he's claiming he did.
Yeah, I mean, look, I personally have always thought that what we got in that video was the tail end of whatever happened. So I like we only see just this little drive that's not even
covered
not
by
the 50 yards they were talking about. So I think that he probably something happened where he was attached. And Jeff Darlington said he was attached to the car. Yeah. Like that was someone who was an eyewitness. So I think that probably happened. It probably wasn't anywhere near the extent that he was talking about. But this is one of those things where I'm like, I can't wait for this to be over. But I think that lawsuit's coming.
Oh, no.
No, I think they both agree that they're not going to do it.
They keep saying that, but I think that this lawyer sounds like he's he wants one.
He's talking tough, but he can only do what Scottie wants to do.
Yeah.
I think Scheffler wants it to go away. Is there anything else that happened yesterday?
A few things. Pelicans assistant James Borrego had his second interview for the Lakers job yesterday. The LA Times said Borrego was, quote, impressive in the sit-down. But another report yesterday said J.J. Redick is already talking to potential assistants as if he will be the next Lakers head coach. On the court tonight, the Mavs get their second chance to close out the T-Wolves. Game 5 in Minneapolis. The lying from Dallas continues. Luka again listed as questionable because of his knee and ankle, air quotes, injuries. The Edmonton Oilers were down 2-0 just 5.5 minutes into Game 4 with the Stars last night. They didn't have a shot on goal, but they rallied for a 5-2 home win, tying the Western Conference Final at 2. Some baseball last night. The Mariners topped the Astros in 10-1. Same final in just 9 innings. The Yankees over the Angels in Anaheim, and the Nationals got a 7-2 win in Atlanta. Asia Wilson, 29 points, 15 rebounds, 4 blocks in the Aces' 80-66 win at the Minnesota Lynx. And Minnesota beat Boston 3-0 in their decisive Game 5 to claim the first professional women's hockey league title. Guys, back to you.
You see that we had a similar incident in the Yankee game that happened last week in the White Sox game, which is infield fly rule with runners on base. And then Juan Soto is trying to get back to second, and he knocks over the second baseman, and they called that interference. But he had nowhere to go. It's like the same thing, and it ended up being 2 outs, and the Yankees, it ended the inning, right?
Aaron Boone got thrown out for that in the first inning.
Yeah, he always gets thrown out.
Now, the weird thing about the Soto, because I'm weirdly an expert on this rule now from last week, like when you're on the base, you don't need to get off the base to allow a fielder to make a play. That's the one thing you don't have to do as a runner, because when there's fielding, the fielder has the right of way, so to speak. Sure. But if you're on the base, you're like in this safety zone where you don't have to move to let him make a play. But he's going back to the base, so he's not on the base.
But
and
the
they make
only
contact.
way he could get back to the bag, though, would be to totally run out of the base path.
But I guess the argument is he needs to go back to the base faster because he not on purpose, but he gets to he's going slowly back so that when he's there, that's when the ball is landing is when he's behind the shortstop.
I get it, but the other thing about this that's crazy is the shortstop, was the shortstop or second baseman?
Shortstop.
So he's trying to make the catch as the ball is moving, so he's not just planted underneath like a left fielder waiting for this pop out to come to him. He's kind of like he has to make a last minute adjustment. You kind of see to catch the infield fly.
Yeah.
And so what's Soto supposed to do?
I think the one argument would be he needs to go back to the base right away because he doesn't go back to the base right away. He's kind of walking back because the ball is a mile in the air.
Yeah.
And it just the timing of it puts him right behind the shortstop when he has to make that last backward lunge.
Yeah.
But if he'd gone back right away, he would have been at the base and it wouldn't have been a problem.
I mean,
guess
also
that's the rationale.
How about hit one out of the freaking park? How about that? It went out of the infield.
Oh, yesterday, the day before, he swung at a pitch that was in the other batter's box. I couldn't believe it.
When it's bad for him, it's so bad. When it's good, it's great. He could win an MVP. But when it's bad,
do the Yankees have problems? Really?
No, they're great.
I know.
We're nitpicking. It's just crazy this happens.
Yeah, Stanton swings at bad pitches and Soto doesn't get to a base back in time. That's all they got going for him.
But it's just crazy we have the same exact thing that happens a week apart.
I don't want to jump on Perloff's bandwagon. Just saying, I don't remember any infield issues during the steroid era. Infield fly rule. I don't remember back-to-back days, back-to-back weeks of infield fly conversations. I just remember talking about Andro in Mark McGuire's locker, but he was still hitting 70 home runs.
Thank you for bringing it full circle there, executive producer, as we were talking old school, new school today, old school versus new school. What do you like better, the steroid era in baseball or the modern era? Touche.
There you go.
Fair point. Coming up, we get back to football and a check-in with one of the young star quarterbacks in the league. Don't move.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining.
Said that he gonna win. Roasting Tom Brady. We took Peter Blatty's got something to say about Tom Brady and a roast on that day. He's angry and he's speaking his mind, saying Brady was out of line. Should've known better, should've thought twice before agreeing to that roast. It ain't right, talking about his ex-wife crossing the line. Peter Blatty says someone needs to find that children shouldn't have to hear all of that. It's not fair to them, it's a matter of fact. Brady, you messed up, it's time to face the truth. Peter Blatty won't forget you, that's the truth. Bogusch waves, he's got the road trip blues, left behind, feeling like he's bound to lose. Perloff's off to San Antonio, can't believe his eyes. But Bogusch stuck at home, his heartache amplifies. Betting against Wembanyama, Perloff took the fall, but it's Bogusch left behind, feeling 10 feet tall, a loser in his own right. Can't catch a break, road trip dream shattered. For goodness sake, for goodness sake, Bogusch cruising highways, he'll never be atop San Antonio shining. The city's calling their names, but Bogusch sitting home, stuck playing life's cool games. Bogusch weeps, Bogusch weeps. He's got the road trip blues, left behind, feeling like he's bound to lose. Perloff's off to San Antonio, can't believe his eyes. But Bogusch stuck at home, his heartache amplifies. Betting against Wembanyama, Perloff took the fall.
Hey, it's Meg.
But it's Bogusch left behind, feeling 10 feet tall, a loser in his own right. Can't catch a break, road trip dream shattered. For goodness sake, for goodness sake, Bogusch counting the minutes, ticking like a clock, while Perloff's cruising highways, Hilarion tall, San Antonio shining, the city's calling their names. Bogusch sitting home, stuck playing life's cruel games. Bogusch weeps.
Welcome back. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. Okay, got a couple things out here for you right now. You can go vote on our polls on Twitter, Maggie and Pearl. One, who is the better owner, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban? Two celebrity owners in Dallas. Perloff and I don't agree on that. I said Jerry, he said Mark. And then also old school, new school week here on the Maggie and Perloff show. Today we hit baseball. What'd you like more, the steroid era or modern baseball?
Modern baseball, which, we're not talking about. The steroid era was not that long ago.
I know, but don't double check the math on that. It's kind of feeling like it was a while ago. We haven't. Yes, I'm sorry.
It's not dead era baseball where Ty Cobb
this isn't
running
Shoeless
with
Joe.
spikes up front. It is funny. What is modern era baseball? That is why I think I'm going to win this debate with the steroid era. Modern era baseball.
Well,
Interesting.
It's guys, every pitcher's throwing 100, just major gas. It's, starting pitchers are incredible. Relief pitchers are incredible. It's, depends on what kind of hitter you like. You can have your Aaron Judges. You have your Shohei Ohtanis. The home run hasn't gone anywhere.
Exit velocity.
Exit velo, if that's your thing. A little VORP.
Yeah. I just think the problem that you just sort of named sort of things that, maybe, sort of, it's just hard to define this era of baseball. They have not established what they are yet.
The pitch clock era.
The pitch clock era, yeah.
I like it. 855-212-4227. Okay, we should check in on the Green Bay Packers, Perloff, because as we get closer and closer to the season, you're going to watch this hype train of Jordan Love, which is already gathering lots and lots of steam, is probably going to be at a fever pitch. And there are some changes that happened with the Packers this year. And, of course, one of them was with the running back situation. So Jordan Love was speaking to reporters a day or two ago, said losing Aaron Jones, that was tough.
It was very tough. Aaron Jones is such a special player, and he was a special guy in this locker room since I've been here. So, everybody loved Aaron, and it's very tough. But, it's one of those things that you can't control.
Okay, so on the flip side, he does like what he's seen from Josh Jacobs so far.
Obviously, getting Josh here, it's been awesome, and I'm excited to see him on the field. But he's an awesome player. He's an awesome teammate so far. So it's been good getting to know him, and I'm excited to see what he can do this year.
Okay, so that's a little update, at least from the offensive side of the ball, with switching out Aaron Jones, who was just brilliant, obviously, in their win against the Cowboys in the divisional round, and now bringing in Josh Jacobs. And again, this is going to be a Jordan Love season that's going to start with a lot of eyes on this young quarterback. I bet a lot of people are going to pick him to win MVP this year. He's going to get all the trappings of now the Green Bay quarterback, everything that comes with being the Packers quarterback, and this idea that now the Packers have passed the torch successfully 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of history that goes with the way we view Jordan Love, which is an unfair expectation. He shouldn't have to be Aaron Rodgers already. I do agree with you, though. People are gonna want that. It's funny. I think this is an upgrade, Josh Jacobs over Aaron Jones, because Aaron Jones hasn't been as durable as Jacobs. Jacobs is a really good player, too, because he was producing at a high level on a team that O-line was always kind of shaky with the Raiders. I think this is going to be a really good fit. It's unusual, too, for the Packers to go out and sign a sort of a star. So I think that part's fine. The real question about Jordan Love and the Packers is they have this hodgepodge of young receivers that seem like they could all break out and be pretty good. Being, for me, Christian Watson, like if he's healthy, wow, they have a lot of guys. I feel like Jordan Love's in a great position to succeed here. He's got a great coaching staff. So I tend to see this team really, what is bullish? Yeah, bullish. Yeah. I'm really bullish on this team. Everything's in place for Jordan Love here, including this running back position. There's no drop-off to me without Aaron Jones. I don't really see the scenario where he's really going to struggle. I know he wasn't perfect last year by any means, but it feels like he's got everything right there for him.
Kicking off the season against your Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil is kind of an odd way to do it, but nonetheless, here's the one thing about the Packers, though, and with Jordan Love. I think they're going to be a good team, and I think it's going to be very fun to see where Jordan Love picks up if he picks up exactly where he left off, which was a fantastic game in the rain against the San Francisco 49ers, a game they probably should have won. This division, though, and that's the thing about it.
What about this division?
Well, I think the Lions are the best team in the division.
Right.
And I
think
they
were last year, too.
They were last year, and while I think the Packers will be right there, I got to be honest, I'm like a little bit more intrigued about what Caleb Love is going to do with the Bears, but right now, excuse me, Caleb. Did I say Caleb Love?
Yeah.
Sorry, was that a North Carolina
basketball
player?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Okay. Caleb Williams.
Arizona, yeah.
So I think for Jordan Love, like this is what's going to be tough. If there's any shakiness out of the gate, I think that he's going to feel it. I do. I think that, it's not like last year was perfect from start to finish. He really came on at the end of last season. If there's any kind of, hiccup or finding their footing, I think that people are going to really pile on him because now the expectations for him are really high.
Yeah, but I mean, he was somewhat disappointing the first half of the year. Actually, no one really blamed him for some of that stuff. But he rebounded pretty nicely from last year's struggles, first half of the season.
Yep.
About the division, he's a veteran. There's 2 rookie quarterbacks in his division. That's a gigantic advantage.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming J.J. McCarthy is going to be starting for the Vikings, right?
Well, yeah, or you got Sam Darnold. Right. Regardless, I know what you're saying about this division. There's a lot of hope here moving forward, but still, you got 2 rookie quarterbacks. There's that report that Caleb Williams has been struggling in practice. This seems like a pretty good position to me. I'm not scared of their schedule. Detroit's great, but you can have a division like you have the AFC North where the Bengals and Ravens are both awesome. That doesn't mean that they're probably going to play each other in playoffs. I'm not going to downgrade them because of that.
I'm not downgrading. I'm just saying it's not like it's right here for the taking, And anytime that you're the Packers, obviously, you want the home field advantage, right? That's the Lambeau is,
Well, yeah, it didn't really work out that way toward the end of Rodgers. He was kind of struggling in the playoffs in Lambeau.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they shouldn't have lost. I don't know if they shouldn't have lost those games, but that's still the focus. You want to have that home field.
Yeah, except that they went into Dallas and dropped a 50 bomb on the Cowboys. No,
I know. And Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl, they were a wild card team. I get it.
It's weird. You're right. Lambeau should be a huge home field advantage. That does not worry me for this team. They do have the AFC South on their schedule, too. That's pretty good for building your confidence. This is setting up well. So, I'm really excited for them.
It's funny because Kevin is in the chat, youtube.com/Infinity Sports. He said the Packers are the future of the NFC North. But then what are the Lions? The Lions are also the future. There. I mean, they're not an old team. Jared Goff's not an old quarterback. They just re-signed him. Sewell is young. Amon-Ra St. Brown is young. Aiden Hutchinson is young.
Yeah, I think
they're the future.
I think they're both going to be going back and forth.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are lucky they have nobody in their division. Maybe Harbaugh will give them a challenge now. But I think it's very similar to Baltimore and Cincinnati. They're just both teams are going to be there. There's no reason you can have 2 contenders in one division.
No, you definitely can. It's like I feel like there's a thing about it's like the red carpet's being rolled out here for Jordan Love. I'm like, all right, but not so fast here. You still have the Lions, and they were and should have been in the Super Bowl a year ago.
Yeah, but so good. Yes, but honestly, the Lions played the same game the Packers did against the Niners. They both had
that's true.
The eventual NFC champion on the ropes. They're both right there.
I could see you making a Jordan Love MVP bet. I feel like I know you well now.
Nah.
I've known you well for a long time. I feel like that could be up your alley.
Well, yeah, it's funny though. I'm a Detroit Lions super fan, so it's hard for me.
I forgot about that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the fact that they got Sam Laporta and Brian Branch in the second round last year. They're a drafting monster. I don't know. I can't even remember off the top of my head who we got this year, but it seems like they are making all the right moves. Green Bay is very good too. I like that bet. I don't know if the odds are great. What is he? Probably 4th?
Something like that.
Let's go deeper. How about a Brock Purdy bet?
But Brock, what did he finish last year?
Third?
He was a finalist.
Is that going out on a limb?
I'll bet you Love is higher than Purdy. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, I like where your head's at. This is good. And you know who I love? I love these receivers. Jalen Reed, Jaden Reed, and Dontavian Wicks. I mean, that guy's awesome, and he's like their 7th receiver.
EJ, what'd you say?
Brock Purdy 4th in MVP last year.
And let's get some odds on where he is this year, too. Because as you guys said, if there's nothing to worry about with the 49ers and everything's great and they're favored in every game, Brock Purdy's MVP.
I looked it up earlier because I was interested in my own, and it was kind of low. Right now, it looks like he's at plus 3,000, which is actually pretty good, but it was lower than that just a couple of weeks ago. I feel like it's been rising.
I see.
Where's Jordan Love?
That's a good question.
I see Jordan Love on FanDuel plus 1,400, 7th. Brock Purdy plus 2,000 is 11th. So Love is actually tied with Jalen Hurts for 6th. Sorry. So there's not as much value there. Remember Jalen Hurts? Remember that was a thing?
Yeah. He'll be a thing again. Coming up, we dive more into our question today. Who is the better owner? Is it Jerry Jones or is it Mark Cuban? 2 celebrity owners in Dallas. We check in with our friend RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. All things Cowboys coming your way next. Don't move. It's Maggie Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break.
In a kitchen dark with shadows long, Andrew Perloff sings his eerie song with a sitting in my room, scrolling through the tube, watching Maggie and Perloff, getting in the groove. Found a viewer in the chat, his name's Dalton, I'm Brian. Spitting fire comments, he's the #1 fan. Got his fingers moving, stepping non-stop. Dropping all the knowledge, never gonna fly. Talking about Ryan, he's the king of the chat. With his love for the show, there ain't no doubt. Every episode, he's always in the mix. Leaving comments for the host, he's got the tricks. Talking about Ryan, he's a YouTube star. With his quick comments, he'll take it far. I've been sitting in my room, scrolling through the tube, watching Maggie and Perloff, getting in the groove. Living life in 20-second views, scrolling through, he's got no time to lose. Maggie and Perloff, daily's keeping score, YouTube's his love. He's begging for more, double tap, clicking on that video. From sunrise to sunset, he never lets it go. Maggie snappy, Perloff's got a glow. Daily's hooked, he's looking for the show. Chasing trends, Daily's on a quest. Comments pouring in, he's one of the best. From every corner of the internet's reach. Daily's voice. Pine Needles wakes up at dawn, coffee brewing, screen turned on. He's got a favorite show to see, the Maggie and Perloff Symphony. Oh, pine needles are tuned in tight to Infinity Sports Radio every night. Maggie and Perloff, your daily delight. In their words, you find your life. From highlights to the breaking news, every take you can't refuse. In the chat, he's always there with comments, questions, wisdom to share. Oh, pine needles, you're tuned in tight to
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
Dallas Mavericks can punch their ticket to the NBA Finals tonight, Perloff, if they can only take care of those pesky Minnesota Timberwolves on the road. Hey, welcome to the show, Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. And the Mavericks being, again, back in this conversation, Luka's the best player in the series so far, got us thinking about just the Mavericks and then put them against the Dallas Cowboys. You've got two teams in Dallas with two incredibly famous owners, celebrity owners who really are the faces of their team, with Jerry Jones and Mark Cuban. And we've been talking about who is the better owner. Now, we know Mark Cuban has sold a large stake of the Mavericks. That literally went down in December. He's still going to get credit for this title if the Mavericks do indeed get to the finals and then beat the Boston Celtics.
Right, and actually has a new role where he's running basketball operations, which is the most important part of this conversation to me. When you're debating who's a better owner, who's putting a team that can win a championship on the field or on the court.
Right, and so you and I don't really see this the same. I think that Jerry Jones is the better owner. If we're talking about Jerry Jones versus Mark Cuban, I do think Jerry has been the better owner. Now, is that a little tough right now? I know Cowboys fans are very mad at Jerry because he promised an all-in offseason. It's been anything but that. But you got to look at the body of work here since Jerry Jones has taken over the team, because he is the person who hired Jimmy Johnson. Yes, he is the person who fired Jimmy, but he is the person who hired him. And I think that was two egos got in the way with Jerry and Jimmy. Jimmy wasn't begging for his job back. Jimmy also walked out the door. And I think that they both had to own a lot of it. And I think that Jerry Jones has done the thing you want an owner to do, which is put you in the position to succeed. And if you have 3 straight seasons of the Cowboys winning 12 games, that's putting your team in a position to succeed.
So you're saying if you just look at it sort of from a larger view, when an owner and a coach clash, it's smart for the owner's ego to play out and fire the coach. Like, that's not a flaw in an owner. Owner's got to pull back from the on-field stuff and say, do your thing. That's what a good owner does. And that is the exact opposite of what Jerry Jones is doing.
Well, when Jimmy Johnson gets in a Corvette and drives away, I mean, what are you supposed to chase after the guy? They did win a title after Jimmy was gone. I know that it was with Jimmy's players, and I understand that. But this is my thing. Jerry Jones started off his tenure with a bang, with taking a team that was 1-15 and turning them into a dynasty. And then I think what he's done, kept keeping the team as relevant as possible. They're like still America's team, as much as people roll their eyes at that maybe lately. But you put together double-digit win seasons. What's Jerry to do when the Packers come to town? He can't get out there and stop Aaron Jones. At some point, you can't blame the owner for the failures in the postseason, because if a team was really that bad and if the owner was that toxic, they're not winning 12 games. They're not winning the division. If it's bad, it's bad. Like the Carolina Panthers. We know that's bad. They can't get out of their own way. Jerry and the Cowboys, they are perennial playoff and Super Bowl contenders.
Well, but that's like saying that just getting the playoffs is all you should expect. That's like saying that the Buffalo Bills have been exactly the same as the New England Patriots through the years. Yes, of course there's a difference between having a team that can win a Super Bowl and having a team that can get blown out in the first round. And that is an organizational thing from top to bottom.
Okay, well, Mark Cuban, they lose in the first round a lot.
They're not losing this year.
Okay, but that's just being a prisoner of the moment.
Well, we're doing this debate today. I just think the Mavs have had more sustained success than the Cowboys. And honestly, it's not even a debate about who's been a better franchise, who's been a better owner. And I think just the fact that Cuban has been a little more willing to share the decision-making than Jerry's just getting in the way.
Okay, but what's the thing that the Cowboys do well? They draft well. And so if you really are an owner who's getting in the way in a negative way, you'd be Dan Snyder, who comes in off the yacht and says, I want to take Dwayne Haskins, may he rest in peace. And that's how an owner really gets involved and gets and makes your team worse. The Cowboys are a good drafting team. So whatever Jerry's doing in that war room, that's not what's hurting them.
Well, the owners, though, but Jerry held on to Jason Garrett for way too long, and he's been hiring the wrong coaches. And they're a good drafting team. I mean, they're not 100%. I mean, Mazi Smith certainly doesn't look like a great pick.
But they're also not getting the first overall pick over and over. This is the Jaguars who get multiple bites at the apple to get generational people. You know, when you're a good team and a relevant team, you're picking in the late 20s.
Yeah, I mean, listen, right, but it's not like he is the ultimate drafter by any means here in Dallas.
They've had a great offensive line for a really long time.
I mean, I look at the Taco Charlton, Leighton Vander Esch, who actually was good. He could stay healthy. There's been a lot of swings and misses.
Here's the other thing. You talk about more sustained success. We're talking about who's a better owner. Is it Mark Cuban or is it Jerry Jones? 2 celebrity owners in Dallas. Turf war there. It's much easier to make the playoffs in the NBA. Much easier.
It's actually not anymore. Now, 14 out of 32 make it in the NFL.
That's very recent. We're talking about that's the last, 3 years? This has been like this in basketball.
Well, basketball
got even easier because you got the play-in.
In basketball, it's been 16. In football, it's been 12. So it is easier, but I mean, it's not that much easier. It's not like old school baseball where only 2 teams made it.
Yeah, that was silly. Okay, so that's the question today. Who is the better owner? Celebrity owners, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban, as the Mavs are on the doorstep of another NBA Finals. Let's get some boots on the ground, shall we? RJ Ochoa is one of our absolute favorites, blogging the boys. We come to him for all things Dallas and Cowboys. RJ, what do you think of our question? Better owner, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban?
I think that you have to distinguish how you evaluate Jerry Jones. Do you view him as the owner of the Cowboys? Do you view him as the general manager of the Cowboys, which is the title that he holds in a technical sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, Mark Cuban's willing to acquiesce some of that power is kind of what separates him from Jerry, on the surface at least. There are a lot of ways, I think, to give Jerry kudos, and that's what's complicated about this. They deserve a lot of props, the Cowboys do, for a lot of things, but they also have a lot of flaws. I mean, they won a road playoff game for the first time 2 years ago when they beat the Bucks now in that wild card round since the 1992 NFC Championship game. And that's in a time where right now the Mavericks and the Stars and the Rangers last year are, I think, a collective 23-2 in road playoff games. So they have their warts, and a lot of other teams locally certainly do not.
Well, we're talking about who's the best owner. Just the fact by definition that you said he's made himself the GM automatically means I win this argument with Mark Cuban. RJ,
but here's the thing. He's a GM, and I know we malign Jerry, but the team wins.
Yeah, okay. RJ, has Jerry Jones ever thought about giving up that GM title? I mean, I'm sure you've discussed this before, but I feel like we just all accept that Jerry Jones is an owner and GM, and it's still one of the weirdest situations in sports.
I mean, if you ask me whether I believe that he, is the day-to-day operational general manager, I don't think so. I mean, Will McClay is sort of their pseudo general manager. Stephen Jones obviously has a high level of influence in terms of what the organization does on a day-to-day basis. But that being said, there's just absolutely no way that Jerry would relinquish the title. If Will McClay, in my mind at least, said, I need the title or I'm going to walk, I do think the Cowboys would ultimately find a new VP of player personnel, EVP. They tend to give him a promotion on an annual basis and make up these titles so that he doesn't leave because they don't want to give him that specific one. And that is what, again, is very different about Jerry. He's very stubborn on a lot of things, on a lot of fronts. And that's why last fall it was so surprising when out of the blue, he announced that Jimmy Johnson, who y'all were talking about, was going to enter the Ring of Honor. And so that was kind of the first glimpse at maybe Jerry is willing to bend on certain things. But I have a hard time believing that he would ever give up being the team's general manager and title.
Yeah, RJ, I was arguing with Maggie, and I was dinging Jerry for his coaching choices that, maybe it's a stereotype that's not fair, but it seems like he doesn't want to coach with too much sizzle to take away from what he does. Ever since, I know he dipped into the Parcells pool, but after that, it seemed like he said no more.
I would offer that Mike McCarthy is cut from that cloth. He's not Bill Parcells by any stretch, but he was the dude with skins on the wall, obviously, who'd won a Super Bowl in the building. And I think that the coaching element of this is important to y'all's discussion. This is the third time in a row that Jerry will have his head coach enter a contract year with the team. He had Jason Garrett do it in 2014. The team went 12-4 and won a playoff game, and then Dez caught it. He had Jason Garrett do it in 2019, and they kind of fizzled themselves down the stretch. And they never actually even fired Jason Garrett. They just didn't renew his contract, and they were very specific in wording it that way because he's a chosen son of the organization. So now you're doing it again with Mike McCarthy. I mean, what GM would do that? What GM would want that, lack of stability around the most important staffer in their building? And I would also add to that in 2019, when Jason Garrett entered a contract year, that was the first time that Dak Prescott entered a contract year. So in back-to-back times, the Cowboys, and under Jerry Jones's leadership, have had the two most important people in their building enter a situation where they don't know about their long-term future with the club.
RJ Ochoa is joining us. We love him. Blogging the Boys is awesome. We're asking, who's the better Dallas sports owner? Is it Mark Cuban? Is it Jerry Jones? The poll results not going my way. Mark Cuban is winning this one in a landslide. RJ, though, while we have you, and thanks again for joining us and answering this question, and you're a great person to weigh in on this debate. You mentioned Dak Prescott going into this contract year. Mike McCarthy is also doing that. Jerry said he's always waiting for more leaves to fall. That's what he said. As if these contracts are going to start going backwards and somehow these contracts are going to get cheaper. It's not generally how it works for quarterbacks. Do you think this is a real effort to sign Dak Prescott, or do you think this is, for lack of a better terms, an invitation? Sort of saying that you want to sign Prescott, but you actually want to keep your options open next year?
I think this is ultimately one of three things. And the first is that they're truly this incompetent, and they truly have no idea what they're doing. And I don't find that to be the case, honestly. I know that the jokes kind of write themselves. I think number two would be, that they are just willing to let the market set itself, and the money is infinite, and they'll get off the couch whenever they're ready, and they'll just, fine, let's do it now. And they're just not in that position at this moment. I think the most likely case, though, is that in their heart of hearts, they somehow still believe that playing for the Dallas Cowboys is worth this discount, and that Dak will change his mind, that CeeDee will change his mind, that Micah will change his mind, despite the fact that, they have a 0% batting average in this particular realm. I mean, they have lost every major contractual dispute, which is also an argument against Jerry Jones, the general manager, if you're kind of still playing that game. And so this is super obvious. I mean, anybody who has access to the internet understands the way that the market works relative to the NFL or sports in general. And the Cowboys seem to be the only team hell-bent on kind of peeing into the wind in that respect.
RJ, just to bolster my argument for a little bit, meanwhile, Mark Cuban seems to have hired a coach in Jason Kidd who is coaching circles around the Western Conference. I mean, to me, it seems like I don't think the Mavs have a huge advantage in talent, but they have an answer for everybody. I feel like he's killing Chris Finch in the series. I know Finch is injured, no pun intended, but Jason Kidd must be on a high in that city right now. Is he well thought of?
Yeah, and I mean, it's, this topic obviously is very topical because the Cowboys have the drought that they do. And so the moment the Rangers won the World Series, it's look at them against the Cowboys. And, presuming the Mavs clinch, obviously, tonight, it will be another conversation. I told you, Perloff, I have a pre-write ready to just kind of, pour gas on this fire. But it's weird because I think Mike McCarthy deserves a lot of credit. And this is not a popular time to say that. And I don't liken him to Jason Kidd because I don't think any Cowboys coach has done that great of a job in any particular moment. But I mean, the Cowboys have been a playoff team for 3 straight years. They have won 12 games for 3 straight years. They've done all these things that they hadn't accomplished throughout most of their drought in the Mike McCarthy era. Now, that doesn't mean you hang a banner or you hoist a parade or anything like that. But somebody deserves credit. Like we sit here and we say, Jerry's not a great GM, Mike McCarthy's not a great head coach, Dak Prescott's not a great quarterback, whatever. They're among the most successful teams in the NFL, granted, in the regular season. And so somebody deserves the credit for that. And I think that Mike McCarthy deserves his fair slice of the pie.
RJ, your best guess, we're talking with RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys, talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Your best guess, do you think Mike McCarthy gets a contract extension? Do you think he's the future head coach of the Cowboys? Because, the Bill Belichick rumors, and listen, Belichick can be linked to basically every team in the NFC East, but do you think that McCarthy ultimately stays? And Dak?
I think Dak definitely does. I think that they're ready to do this when they're ready to do this, and they just haven't been at that point in time. The McCarthy of it all is a lot more difficult to predict, and he's fighting a lot of history relative to his own franchise, obviously, and as you both well know, nobody's repeated as an NFC East champion since 2004, so it's very, very difficult to conceive of a reality where Mike McCarthy crosses whatever hurdle or bar that people have for him, and a lot of people love to say, like, oh, if they just reach the NFC championship game, that would be enough. Again, you both know that if the Cowboys reached the NFC Championship game and lost it, nobody would offer them any shred of credit for anything. In fact, I think that the criticism would get even louder having been that close. And so I think shy of just, doing the whole thing, it's difficult to see a world where Mike McCarthy's back. But you mentioned the Belichick thing. He fought off the Sean Payton thing very well.
That's true.
And very humbly. I mean, he dealt with that on a day in, day out basis. And the Cowboys, that was the season that Dak was lost for 5 games at the beginning of the season. And he coached up Cooper Rush. I mean, he managed to kind of, at that point in time, the Cowboys hadn't been a playoff team in consecutive seasons in 15 years. And they did it under Mike McCarthy's watch. So I think objectively, you have to, he's the most successful coach since Jimmy Johnson, despite the fact that Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl.
RJ, does Dak Prescott ever win a Super Bowl in Dallas?
If anybody ever could, I think it's him. This isn't, this is like Frodo in the Ring, right? Like the perfect person to take it back. He is everything that this curse, kind of can be broken by. He's the right person for the job. He's had the right amount of success. I mean, we've blinked and now all of a sudden he is one of the kind of cornerstone faces and profiles of the NFL. He's the longest tenured starting quarterback in the league relative to the team that he plays for because Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson exist. He is on the verge of becoming the Dallas Cowboys all-time leader in passing yards. And those are hollow, meaningless things, but they're reflective of his kind of time served. And so this isn't, a 5-minute project. He is on the verge again of becoming the greatest quarterback in team history, outside obviously of Troy Aikman and Roger Staubach for obvious reasons.
Wow.
RJ Ochoa,
player comp to Frodo. I didn't see that one coming.
RJ's a talented guy. RJ Ochoa, Blogging the Boys. Last one for you from me, which is Trey Lance. So what's the deal with Trey Lance, who, obviously we have a lot of 49er fans and Cowboys fans in our audience. Sort of update us on where he is and what his future
is. He compared to Samwell, Frodo's buddy?
He might be. Poor Trey, they ripped number 15 off of him when Zeke Elliott came back and stuck him with 19. So it's a tough moment and a tough scene to be Trey Lance right now. I understand because of the Dak Prescott of it all why Trey is an interesting proposition. And there are a lot of, people in my mentions and in our comment section that say, well, Trey Lance can just be the future of this team. And that offers no kind of view of reality of the situation. Like Dak, he's entering a contract year with the team. And if you think that, oh man, we'll just let Dak walk in free agency. Okay, great. Now all of a sudden you have a different quarterback who has all kinds of leverage against you in negotiations. And at that point, you'd be negotiating with a Trey Lance with 4 years of NFL service, who you haven't really seen, who technically has an injury history. And so Trey's been dealt a bad hand. I think we all would like to see him have success, but it's outside of the preseason for the Cowboys this year. It's really difficult to conceive of a reality where he's the long-term starting option for the Cowboys at quarterback, just because of the timing of it all, which is why the trade was a weird one. All these facts were known, last August when the Cowboys made the trade, but they did it nonetheless.
RJ, did they look at quarterbacks in the draft process at all? Was there any chance they were taking one in the 20s?
It didn't seem like it. I know people floated out the Michael Penix stuff, but the Falcons saved them from themselves, I suppose. It just, and I think, I wrote about and talked about at the time, if you are serious about moving on from Dak in 2025, if you've made up your mind and you're just going to ride this thing out, then you had to consider it, right? You'd be foolish not to, because you don't have Trey Lance under contract next year. You don't even have Cooper Rush under contract next year. There is literally not a quarterback under contract on this team in 2025. So it made sense to consider relative to the long-term future of this team. But that's kind of the criticism of them, is that they're only focused on the moment. I mean, the CeeDee Lamb extension is obviously a big thing in and of itself, and they'll probably get it done, and they're not worried about Micah because they still have his 5th-year option. Well, that was the mentality and the disposition that they held with CeeDee a year ago, and he turned out the greatest singular season that a wide receiver has ever had in franchise history. So they're content with kicking the can down the road on a lot of things, and letting that be a future version of themselves problem. It's just kind of the way that the sausage gets made around here, which is why I take Mark Cuban.
And bringing it full circle with our question of who is a better owner. Is it Mark Cuban or is it Jerry Jones, the two celebrity owners in Dallas? RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. RJ, thanks so much for getting up early for us and for weighing in and lending your expertise to this very important question.
Of course. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
By the way, RJ, the plans are getting formulated for the trip to San Antonio.
I have a lot of food recommendations for you along the way, and I expect a flag that says, "I'm sorry, Victor."
It's a sign, and it's in French.
Je suis désolé.
That's perfect. That's wonderful.
Yep, and we just hope that Wemby will accept the humble apology from Andrew Perloff. RJ, thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Man, sometimes I forget that we have these things. Like, we get so wrapped up in our big questions of the day and Mark Cuban and Jerry Jones. I keep forgetting you're driving to San Antonio to apologize to Wemby.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot because I have a mechanical problem in the 2018 Honda Accord. That thing is not making it to Texas.
Logistics?
Yeah,
you make it around New York City. I mean, that's way more dangerous.
I got to check engine light on a drive to Boston this weekend. And I was thinking, man, if I can't make it 3 hours to Boston, this thing is not making it to San Antonio.
We got to find you a new ride.
Yeah, if there are any sponsors out there who want to get me in a...
Rent-a-wreck?
Yeah, a new whip. I could use one.
855-212-4227. Okay, coming up, we've got lots more to do, including we've got a sports what if on what could have been for you. The multiverse of Maggie and Perloff comes your way next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
Every single day on Maggie and Perloff show, there's someone in the chat who steals the show. He sings along, he cracks us up all day. We call him Wronger, but he's always right, okay. Oh, Wronger, our witty friend from the start until the end. In the comments, you're a sight, cheering us on, wrong or right. 30 years married, that's a long, long ride. With the Pacers and the Colts, he's got his pride. Running a pawn shop, wheeling, dealing gold. Wrong, he's got the best tales ever told. single day on Maggie and Perloff show. There's someone in the chat who steals the show. He sings along, he cracks us up all day. We call him Wronger, but he's always right, okay. Oh, Wronger, our witty friend from the start until the end. In the comments, you're a sight, cheering us on, wrong or right. 30 years married, that's a long, long ride. With the Pacers and the Colts, he's got his pride. Running a pawn shop, wheeling, dealing gold. Wrong, he's got the best tales ever told. Wronger, our witty friend from the start until the end. In the comments, you're a sight, cheering us on, wrong or right.
One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Exploring sports' biggest what-ifs and could-have-beens. Let's dive into the multiverse of Maggie and Perloff.
All right, on Thursdays around here, we do the multiverse, which is, of course, sports what-ifs, what could-have-beens. And today, we take a look back at the 2021 NFL Draft, Perloff.
Yeah.
You may remember this one because it was one with a prize, a big prize. And the prize was Trevor Lawrence. And because Trevor Lawrence was coming out of Clemson, multiple teams were outright trying to tank to get the number 1 overall pick. And it was really came down to the Jaguars and the New York Jets. They were really trying to get that number 1 pick in Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville succeeded, air quotes, in losing as much as possible. They got Trevor Lawrence. Today, we reimagine and say, what if the New York Jets had completed the mission, tanking that season, and they got Trevor Lawrence as opposed to taking the 2nd overall pick, which was Zach Wilson?
Right. So to me, and follow me here, this is bad for the Houston Texans.
Okay.
That means there's no C.J. Stroud in Houston, and they are in quarterback limbo once again. Here's how I get there.
Okay.
So Jacksonville, in this scenario, gets a number 2 pick. People now know Zach Wilson is terrible, but I'm telling you, during that draft period, he was going number 2.
Yep.
Maybe Justin Fields, some teams liked him, but Zach Wilson was probably going to Jacksonville to be joined by Urban Meyer. So they would have had one terrible year. They got the number 1 pick, just like what happened in real life. It got Trayvon Walker, terrible pick the next year. But then they'd be back. They obviously would have moved on by Zach Wilson. They would have been so bad if Zach Wilson had been their quarterback. They would have been where Houston was with the number 2 pick behind Carolina, and they would have ended up with C.J. Stroud instead of Houston, because Houston would have picked off a couple wins of Zach Wilson. And then Jacksonville is already in rebuilding mode on their next quarterback. Meanwhile, in New York, Trevor Lawrence is great. Can't miss. The Jets' power of jetsing up things would have overcome that. And they would, I think it would have been hurt behind that terrible offensive line, and they would have been exactly where they are, mired in mediocrity.
Okay, so we are reimagining the 2021 NFL draft. Teams were tanking for Trevor Lawrence. So what if the Jets had actually tanked this well enough and they got Trevor Lawrence, not Zach Wilson, and Jacksonville would have ended up with the second overall pick? Now, I like this for the Jets. I actually think the Jets are good. The Jets' defense has been good, borderline great over the last, since Robert Saleh got there, and that would have been his first year.
That's because no one's had to throw a pass against him in 5 years because they can't get more than 8 yards on offense.
Be that as it may, it's good. It's a good defense. And even last year when Zach Wilson was awful, they won 7 games. And even when they've had multiple quarterbacks, the defense has never been the problem. With a guy like Trevor Lawrence, you're automatically better. Like, even Trevor Lawrence maybe has not lived up to the hype that we had for him. He's still, like, he is Tom Brady and Joe Montana wrapped into one for the Jets. Like, that's how bad the quarterback situation has been, and that's how much better he makes it. So I think the Jets are in good shape. Here's the part of this multiverse, which is, what if the Jets had gotten Trevor Lawrence in that number 1 pick and not the Jacksonville Jaguars? Where's Aaron Rodgers now? Because I think it was always coming to an end between him and the Green Bay Packers. That was going to run its course, Perloff. So where would have been the landing spot that made any sense for Aaron Rodgers? And this is a very tough one to get to. The one I could land on was, I think it's Miami, because you need an owner that kind of has a little Woody Johnson in him, which is a star chaser. And I think that Stephen Ross would have been that guy. Definitely Chase Brady. And Tua is right now is on good footing, but I think they would have brought Aaron Rodgers in and just said, all right, Tua, you're just going to take a seat or whatever. And Miami is the one place that I could see for Rodgers, because I don't think he'd be in Minnesota to truly follow the Brett Favre path, because they did have Cousins. I don't think he'd be in San Francisco, even though that may have been a possibility. I don't think that the Packers were going to trade him to San Francisco. I don't think that was ever going to happen. Rivals and such. I don't think it would have been Dallas. I don't think it would have been the Rams. I'm trying to think of other places where Rodgers could have gone. I think it's New England. So I think he would have been in Miami. And again, this is the multiverse of Maggie and Perloff. This is what if the Jets had gotten the number 1 pick in the 2021 draft and took Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, I could buy that. I mean, the sad reality is that he wouldn't have played for Miami last year. Miami would be lost. I wonder if they would have kept Tua in that circumstance. Tua was coming off that concussion year. That makes perfect sense. I don't know. I'm not sure if Miami easily could have pulled off that trade. I'm sure they could have found a way. That being, I mean, is there really any gigantic impact on the NFL here? Or do you say Trevor Lawrence would be good for the Jets? Yes. Would he be Super Bowl good? Because he has an offensive coaching staff, and they paid a ton for wide receivers, and he had a pretty mixed year last year.
Yep.
I can't imagine him really being any better with the Jets.
I think
would probably be a little worse.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the offensive lines are they comparable? I mean, the Jets' offensive line is pretty bad, but Trevor Lawrence is also pretty spry. So he doesn't run a lot, but he can.
He's a little injury prone. I mean, look at the guys he had around him. Like last year,
But he plays every game. He just plays through injuries.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot going on in Jacksonville to support Trevor Lawrence, and I'm not sure the Jets have that infrastructure. I mean, look at the line last year. They couldn't protect Rodgers for 4 plays.
I know, but what about Trevor Lawrence with Garrett Wilson? You're telling me that's not a awesome connection?
I'm telling you right now, like, I think the Jets, and we're going to see it this year too, I'm worried that the Jets could get everything in place around their quarterback, and I'm only basing that on 50 years of Jets history.
All right, so that's the multiverse of Maggie and Perloff. What if the Jets had gotten Trevor Lawrence instead of the Jags? Both teams were tanking to try to get Trevor because he was the prize of that 2021 draft. Did we leave out any big tentacles?
I liked your thought on Rodgers, but I think the reason why you couldn't find a place was I think the real thing that would have happened is he would have retired. He wouldn't be playing. Because remember, this guy was 90% retired when he went into that retreat. And it was the Jets that were just like pounding the table saying, we want to meet with him. We want to bring him in. And it was that meeting that Rodgers said that really made him say, all right, I'm ready. I want to do this. Like, I think we underrate how much he, for whatever reason, was attracted to this Jet situation. I don't know if that would have been the same somewhere else.
It's a fair point. I thought he came out of the darkness, was like, no, I do want to play, then turned his phone on and realized that the Packers had moved on. And then it was I'm going to shove this far up there. Yeah.
But also, too, he could have reconciled with the Packers possibly if he didn't know the Jets were out there because Goody was trying to call him.
And was he, though? Because he doesn't get service at the Malibu house.
I think if Rodgers thought he had no other options, I don't believe that 90% retired. I think a lot of players feel that way after the season. I'm going to retire. I think he could have had some options with Green Bay if he really went and groveled to their front office. I mean, he still was effective. Yeah, I just think this is such rose-colored glasses to think that Trevor Lawrence or anybody is going to save this Jets team because – I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not saving the team. They still have not done a thing.
Well, let's wait and see. So that's the multiverse.
Let's wait and see what. How many years are we going to wait?
Well, I think you got 2, and maybe according to Aaron Rodgers, you got 1 because if he doesn't play well, then they're all getting fired. 855-212-4227. Multiverse of Maggie and Perloff. Today's multiverse. What if the Jets had gotten Trevor Lawrence instead of the Jags? Andrew Bogusch is here with the latest.
Mom, Dad, you'd think down 2-1, the Edmonton Oilers would have started Game 4 last night well. Instead, in the first 5.5 minutes, they did not get a shot on goal while the Stars scored twice. But then Edmonton finally woke up.
Now a steal by Draisaitl to Hyman, back to Draisaitl, shoots and scores! 4-2! Edmonton extends to a 2-goal lead! 2 goals in 51 seconds!
Jack Michaels on Oilers Radio. Leon Draisaitl scoring 51 seconds after Matthias Janmark broke a 2-2 tie with a shorthanded goal. Edmonton beat Dallas 5-2 to level the Western Conference Final at 2. Draisaitl now on that rally.
I think maybe we were a little sleepy for a couple minutes there. Found our legs, got going a little bit, started to play our game, and stayed fresh, rolled lines, and obviously we're a tough team to handle when we play that way.
There's a microphone. Game 5 in Dallas tomorrow night. The Mavs and T-Wolves play their Game 5 tonight in Minneapolis. Dallas big Derek Lively upgraded to questionable with his Game 3 or Game 2 neck sprain. As for the offseason, I think it was yesterday when we discussed the possibility of the Sixers missing out on Paul George and then trading for Jimmy Butler instead, signing him to a max extension. The Miami Herald says 2 other unnamed teams willing to do the very same thing with the 34-year-old Butler.
Yeah, I love it.
Trying to think of who these teams are.
Someone tell me who these unnamed teams are.
Let's see. Who's Jimmy Butler's agent? And let's follow the trail here of who's trying to get a market for Jimmy Butler. Or maybe this is Miami trying to get a market. Who knows?
Is there any chance that the Lakers are one of those teams?
Jesus.
I know you're getting old, but could you put him at the 3 and put LeBron at the 4?
That'd be an all-time accomplishment for the Lakers to get older. It would be incredible.
But I'm trying to think of what team would be stupid enough to do this.
Well, the 76ers.
I think there are a lot of teams. I think there are a lot of teams that have young players who think, bring in Jimmy, and he's going to teach them how to win. And that's what the Sixers are thinking, too.
The other team I thought was, ironically, the teams that Bronny James will connect to. I also thought Phoenix, because they got to drop off that Bradley Beal contract somewhere. And maybe Miami will say, hey, we'll take a younger guy, even if he's nowhere near as good.
I thought Beal had a no-trade clause. I thought that was part of the problem, right?
Wouldn't you waive it, though, to go to Miami?
He's going to Miami. He might go there.
I think it's a different for. I think it's a young team who thinks that he'll be the piece like Orlando or Cleveland or somebody like that who thinks that I don't think they already have LeBron in LA. They know how to be pros. I think that's the
a Memphis or something with Ja.
Well, Memphis. That doesn't seem perfect to me. I think a team on the brink like Orlando would be perfect for Jimmy.
I just thought of Jimmy. I don't really love adding him, as I've said, but I do feel like whoever wants him, I thought would want him as a final piece to a championship puzzle, whether that's true or not.
Not a babysitter.
Yeah. So I didn't know. And also, Jimmy's kind of a wild boy. I don't know if you want to. Last time he was around a young team, he basically blew it up with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So
he literally did.
That would be an interesting mix, putting him with the young team. But maybe one of these teams want to take that flyer.
I mean, it's also if I'm an East team, you don't need much to get out of the East. It is a wide open conference. So Jimmy could be the missing piece for a bunch of teams there. In the West, it's a little trickier. Phoenix, oh my God.
Well, the only thing is, though, then it's Miami signing off on trading him to a place in the Eastern Conference.
Philly has been the team, so it seems like Miami might be open to it.
But yeah, you're asking for Michael Myers to come back at the end of the movie, if you trade him somewhere in the East.
I think if you're Miami and you see the Sixers, for example, want to sign him to a 4-year, $200 million deal, you're definitely weakening a contender. I mean, that's a terrible deal that's going to hamstring them for years. Everybody knows it. Maybe you get a little bump, but if you're Miami, you're sitting back and laughing if that deal happens.
And you have an advantage trading with the Sixers, too, because you don't have to take back any salary. Because the Sixers can absorb a contract. So you could just say, don't give me any of your scrub players.
You're not going to take Tobias off our hands.
Tobias. I know he's a free agent, but you wouldn't take any of those guys. Just give me all your draft picks. I'll just take and just do that.
Pine Needles in the chat, the Warriors are always chasing after Butler. Is that true?
I don't remember that ever happening.
Is Golden State lying in the weeds? Interesting. Bogusch, what else do we have, sir?
What else do we have? Let me find my scripts here. So I'm doing the NBA trade machine right now. I'm going to suggest the Cavaliers make sense.
No, let's wait.
The Cavs make sense because of Darius Garland's contract, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that too.
Man, you just have a tab open at all times on the trade machine?
No, I was typing.
Not to add a story to Bogusch's thing, but you guys see also that, apparently Donovan Mitchell has quote-unquote LeBron-like influence on the Cavs right now?
Yeah, what did that mean? And I saw that
meant that he could just tell them to do whatever they want. Fire coaches, hire coaches, trade guys. That was how I took it.
Well, they definitely just fired a guy because Mitchell didn't like him.
Right. So I'm kind of thinking maybe that's what they're talking about.
It's just a funny analogy to have LeBron-like influence over a team that can't really get out of the first or second round.
So bizarre.
And both guys have media members telling us that they're not involved in these things while they have overarching power on the entire organization.
Right, but what's the point of having overarching power over a 500 team? That's not a thing, is it?
You don't have it, I don't have it, but they do.
It's like being a king of a slum.
It's like saying De'Aaron Fox has overarching power over everything the Kings do. Or a medium team I don't know. It's just LeBron power means that you've done something. Anyway.
The imploding Niners did pay a receiver yesterday, just not Brandon Ayuk. Juwan Jennings inking a 2-year deal. It guarantees him $10.5 million. He was a restricted free agent. New Cubs lefty Shota Imanaga allowed just 5 earned runs over his first 9 starts. He gave up 7 in 4+ innings last night in Milwaukee.
Imanaga at the belt. Pitch to Perkins. Fly ball left center. In his way back, and it is gone! Blake Perkins robbed one in the top half, and now he sends one out.
Imanaga's ERA goes from 0.84 to 1.86 in just a night. The Cubs lose the game 10-6. The Rockies top the Guardians 7-4 to win their 3rd series in a row. Colorado's 12-7 since that 8-28 start. Messi scored, but Inter Miami lost to Atlanta United 3-1, snapping their 10-match MLS unbeaten streak. And the Washington Mystics still looking for their first win, 0-7. That's one off the worst start in team history after a 73-67 home loss to the Atlanta Dream. Guys, back to you.
Bogusch, thank you so much. Our multiverse question today, which is, what if the Jets had actually won the rights to draft Trevor Lawrence in the 2021 draft? We know the Jags and the Jets were both tanking to try to get Trevor Lawrence. So how would the world have been different if the Jets had gotten Trevor and not the Jags? Williams in California has a thought. William, how are you?
I'm well this morning. How are you?
Love your show. Oh, thank you. So in this multiverse, as we call it, that means Aaron Rodgers needs a new team if Trevor Lawrence is with the Jets. Where do you think Rodgers would be?
Well, in all respect to you and Perloff, I think you can't see the forest through the trees on this. I think a no-brainer, and fitting his narcissistic tendencies, I think Mark Davis of the Raiders would go after this guy.
Yep.
He's already got a future Hall of Famer in Adams. I think he'd throw out the red carpet, perhaps make some trades and or draft more linemen. And I think that with his personality, he would have fit in very well with the Raiders. After all, the last time we really had a great quarterback, albeit for a short period of time, was Rich Gannon. And we know how that imploded in the Super Bowl. But Derek Carr, I think, was already on the way out anyway. And
they went with Jimmy G. But so here's the question, though, William. It's a great thought. Devontae Adams is right there. You're right. Maybe Perloff and I missed an easy layup. But the question is, then why didn't they go after him? It's not like they could have, and they didn't.
They couldn't. But
why?
I don't think they were completely sold on. I think they still might have had some hopes that Derek Carr might be able to rekindle that greatness that he had that one season where he got injured before the playoffs, and boom, they were out of there. And perhaps they were kind of still clinging to the hopes that, Carr was the man.
No, but it was Jimmy G.
Yeah, but Carr was on the market at that point.
They were willing to let Carr go. He was already going somewhere else. They wanted Jimmy G, remember, because he was going to be paired with Josh McDaniels, and that was going to be the new power couple. And William, thank you so much, and it's a great thought because Devontae's there. They could have gone after Rodgers.
Right. I remember the Jets were looking at Carr.
Yeah, remember they carted that
Rodgers.
Italian restaurant and.
I mean, honestly, the Raiders are the West Coast version of the Jets. You would have had to view that quarterback situation very skeptically because the Raiders have been tripping over themselves in different things. Yeah, draft more linemen. It's kind of like what you say with the Jets. Like, could that line have protected Rodgers?
I don't know, but you would have had Devontae, so that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean, what were we, 8 and 9, 10 and 7? I wonder about that team. Like, what is the ceiling? Like, could Aaron Rodgers fix the Raiders? I'm not sure.
855-212-4227. So we got that out there for you. If you'd like to weigh in, the multiverse of Maggie and Perloff. What if the Jets had gotten Trevor Lawrence and not the Jags, and the dominoes that would have fallen from that? Another question out there for you, which is, who is the better owner, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban, as the Mavs are on the doorstep of getting back to the NBA Finals? It's Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back. Maggie Gray and Drew Perloff. We'll get to the Western Conference Finals, whether the Timberwolves can extend this series in just a moment, but if you'll allow me just for a second. Even in the insanely stupid history of the New York Mets, last night a new chapter was written. This is a team where rock bottom simply does not exist. And if anyone wants just to get a good laugh at the expense of the Mets, you got one last night. Because not only are they the worst team in baseball in May, they're getting crushed by the LA Dodgers who have been in town. Last night, their relief pitcher, Jorge Lopez, gets ejected from the game on something pretty flimsy, to be honest. It was silly. And on his way out, he really decides to get his money's worth and takes his glove, Perloff, and throws it over the netting behind home plate into like the fifth row. Mm-hmm. Somebody walked home last night with Lopez's glove with his name on it. And then this was him after the game in the clubhouse.
I don't regret it. I think I've been looking the worst teammate probably in the whole MLB. So, whatever happened. So, whatever they want to do it. I'll be tomorrow here if they want me, whatever they want to do.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a lot there. And he's basically, it sounds like, trying to get fired from the New York Mets. But there was a controversy because did he say, I'm the worst teammate in the world or in Major League Baseball? Or did he say, I'm on the worst team in Major League Baseball? This was a hotly contested. What did he say? English is not his first language. Want to make sure that we don't, bury a guy for saying I'm the worst teammate if people thought, or saying I'm on the worst team if he was just trying to take it on himself. Say I'm the worst teammate.
Can I hear it one more time, possibly? Team versus I'm a worst teammate.
I don't regret it. I think I've been looking the worst teammate probably in the whole MLB. So, whatever happened. So, whatever they want to do it. I'll be tomorrow here if they want me, whatever they want to do.
Yeah, update. He was DFA'd after the game. So here is an update from The Athletic. The Mets reliever, they were asked, did you say I'm playing with the worst team in the whole bleeping MLB or the worst teammate in the whole bleeping MLB? When asked later by a team source which word he meant, Lopez said both. He said both. He definitely said, I am on the worst team in Major League Baseball, or at least that was the sentiment. He may have said teammate, but he definitely meant team and teammate.
I don't know. I think he was a little. I saw the follow up. He said probably to one of those. I don't think he understood what was being said.
Really? Because I think if he got asked to clarify it several times, and there's a translator who's there if you obviously ever need a translator. Here's the question. Why would he be the worst teammate? He hasn't had this terrible season. His ERA is like, it's fine. He's like pitched 27 innings. I think its ERA is something like 3.5 or something.
I don't know why, after he got kicked out of the game, why would he say, I'm on the worst team?
Because he is. He's on the worst team in May. They are 7-19. Pete Alonso, their star, left the game yesterday after he got hit with a pitch. Edwin Diaz has been the worst closer and is now on the IL. Their infield is highly paid, and they are atrocious. Atrocious. Jeff McNeil's terrible. Francisco Lindor has been a massive disappointment. He is on one of the worst teams in baseball. Technically not the worst. The White Sox, the Marlins have worse records.
So what happens?
He got DFA'd, and the Mets circus continues. They can never just lose and it just be like anonymous. That's the thing about the Mets. It's always LOL. It's always point and laugh. Like every one of us, we've gone through things where our team just stinks, right? Like it happens. No team's immune to it. But sometimes you can just sort of stink and nobody cares. This has to be maximum embarrassment and stupidity where a relief pitcher throws his glove into the stands. That doesn't happen. And then there's a controversy of whether or not he said they're the worst team ever or worst team in baseball.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like this all could have been a terrible Mets season in obscurity had this not happened yesterday. Because that's what was happening. I don't think a lot of people were really eyeing on how terrible the Mets were separate in New York City. But then glove goes into the stands.
Yeah, it's leading Sports Center.
Yeah,
it's all
I
bad.
literally was just on ESPN just now on our screens. It's like this was like the Mets were kind of losing in obscurity, which is kind of amazing considering the payroll and the owner that they have.
It's not even June, dude.
I know. It's only. I mean,
it's only going to be a matter of time.
The only hope is that maybe this is the last we hear of them forever. This is just a disgrace what's happening.
Well, he's right.
He's not wrong.
He's right.
But to try to get fired in this way, there's got to be an easier way to get fired.
If this is what the Mets are going to get all upset about, I mean, they should be getting upset about Jeff McNeil not being able to hit, pitchers not being able to pitch, their star players not being able to do anything. So maybe start there.
Silly. A man who's covered a couple silly stories and very serious ones. Jeremy Schaap, the award-winning journalist, is going to join us next. Thank you, folks.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
Welcome back. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. So much on the table for you tonight, including the Minnesota Timberwolves trying to extend this series with the Dallas Mavericks, Perloff. And we saw Luka Doncic is listed as questionable. They've kind of done that throughout the series because he's dealing with a variety of calamities. I know you're not so convinced of their seriousness, but the longer this series goes, definitely plays into the Boston Celtics' hands because they get to sit there, be home, be rested, refreshed, ready to go. Meanwhile, it's the physical and the mental toll. If the Minnesota Timberwolves win tonight, then have a Game 6 back at your place if you're Dallas, and all of the pressure that comes with that.
Well, here's the thing. I think everyone here is mad at me because I won't take Luka Doncic's knee injury seriously. Whether he's hurt or not, the guy is still ridiculously good at the end of basketball games. And he's going to be a major, major problem for the Boston Celtics. I don't care if he has one functional leg, he's going to be impossible to stop with 2 minutes left in the game. That's why if that does end up being the series, I'm picking Luka over Jason Tatum every time.
Well,
I've already made I'd say Mavs in 6. If they don't get there, it's going to be hard to execute that. But
unless we get an all-time comeback from the Timberwolves,
I just think that even a hobbled Luka's got something special at the end of the game, to which I don't see that from the Celtics.
Well, it's going to be interesting tonight because you had the adjustment and the change that Anthony Edwards was guarding Luka, and whether it was just because, they turned in a bad game or whatever, it was a noticeable difference that Luka wasn't hitting a lot of shots when Edwards was guarding him. So I'm assuming they're going to go with that again tonight. We've got a lot of more time to talk about that game, but let's turn our attention to one of our favorites, an award-winning journalist, been such a force in storytelling in sports, and that's Jeremy Schaap, who's got a new documentary out. Comes out June 4th. It's an E60 doc called no easy victories, the 1994 Rangers, and Jeremy Schaap is good enough to join us now. Jeremy, thanks so much for the time. Congrats on the doc.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's really a pleasure. I get to talk to, I think, each of you about once every 6 or 7 years. So good to see you again.
We got a Halley's Comet thing going on. It's in the stars. I love it. Before we get to the doc and to the Rangers, which is one of those teams that stands out forever, like the '85 Bears or something, where we just remember these teams no matter what. Bill Walton passed away, and I saw that you tweeted about Bill, one of the great characters that we had in sports, along with a phenomenal basketball player. Your thoughts of Bill Walton?
I mean, I just love the guy, like everybody else. I mean, we've seen the outpouring of emotion. And I didn't spend a ton of time with Bill Walton, but so many memorable things in the, those rare occasions when I did spend time with him, they're all memorable. I think back to some of the funny stories. I had the honor, the privilege of doing this shoot with him at Pauley Pavilion 20 years ago. And Bill really arranged it. So he decided that for John Wooden's 95th birthday, we were going to do a special for ESPN. I was going to host it. And we would get, like 10 of his greatest players ever together with Wooden on the court at Pauley. And Bill booked the whole thing. But the only problem was he booked one too many people for the conversation. And you know how these things work with the TV production. You've got only so many microphones. You've got only so many director's chairs. And so somebody had to go. And so we had to ask one of these legendary players, and there were a bunch of them there, just about everybody except Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And so we had to ask Rayford Johnson to leave. And I was just like, oh, my God. Most people don't even know that Rayford Johnson, of course, the 1960 decathlon champion, played basketball at UCLA for Wooden. So it's just like, Bill, oh, my God, you're killing me. But when he was setting it up, it was funny. I had done this, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but I had done this event for the Celtics maybe 3 years before, and it was to kick off their big charity, and everybody was there, Auerbach and Russell and Walton, and Burt. I mean, the whole assortment. And there were 100. It was 2 days after the Grady Little, Pedro Martinez, Aaron Boone moment. And it was up in Boston, and everybody told me, don't make any jokes about the Aaron Boone home run. They're not going to get it. I'm like, I'm a New Yorker. It's the biggest thing in the world. It happened 48 hours ago. You have to acknowledge it, right? So, of course, I did. I didn't listen to anybody, and I bombed. I mean, it couldn't have been ugly. And so Walton calls me about doing this thing with Wooden a couple of years later. He's like, Jeremy, don't worry. This isn't going to be anything like Boston. This is going to be great. And I was like, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the compliment. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
All right, Jeremy, I'm trying to do some math here. 1994 Rangers. That's 30 years ago. How is that 30 years ago? It felt like just yesterday that was all happening. Why is it that that's one of those titles, as Maggie said, that stands out and feels like iconic? And to me, it feels like it just happened.
Yeah, well, it's simple math, right? How many of the Rangers won in the last 84 years? That's the only one. So if there were 5 more, if there were 6 more, it wouldn't be as iconic. And if there hadn't been a 54-year drought before we got there, it wouldn't be what it means. The significance, of course, and that's really what this show is about on 2 different levels. And it's called No Easy Victories because it was a struggle. Both the conference final and the Stanley Cup final went to 7 games. The franchise had been through so much for so long, so much heartbreak, good teams that didn't rise to the occasion, mediocre teams, and the fans always stuck with them. So when you win just the one in the span of 84 years, going back to before Pearl Harbor, that one you're going to cling to. We'll see what happens tonight. We'll see what happens with the rest of this Florida series. And then what happens, if they get past Florida, which of course is a very, very big if right now. And we'll see what happens if it's Edmonton or Dallas. But the 94 stands out. And it's not just because it was that one moment, but because of Mark Messier and the way he delivered in Game 6 against the Devils and, the greatest winner and leader in the NHL and all of the drama and Mateau, who scored, the double overtime winner in Game 7 against the Devils. All that stuff, just the drama is unbelievable. And so we go back and we revisit a lot of that, but it's also the story of Stephen McDonald.
Jeremy Schaap is joining us, and a couple all-time calls, too, on that one with Mateau from Howie Rose. And then this one will last a lifetime from Sam Rosen. And both of those, for our purposes, were two incredible, incredible calls that we can appreciate as broadcasters. Jeremy Schaap is joining us, an award-winning journalist, of course, Peabody Award, multiple Emmy Award winner, the new doc, June 4th, No Easy Victories, the 1994 Rangers. You know, Jeremy, we could talk to you about anything because you've covered everything there is to cover in sports. And I always loved when you did stories about boxing. You did such a great job on all of it, but boxing, you're sitting there and the announcement comes across your desk that Mike Tyson is going to be back in the ring to fight Jake Paul, and you're thinking what?
I'm thinking it's sad. You know, to me, it's just sad. I've known Mike for a very long time. I've interviewed him more. I've known him for 30 years. I've interviewed him more than I've interviewed anyone else. I might have interviewed him more than anyone else has interviewed him as well. And I like Mike and I care about Mike. And, I know, it's not a real fight, right? I mean, it's not him getting into the ring against Alexander Usyk or Tyson Fury or anything like that. But it's just, this is something that we see in boxing. We've historically seen in boxing, great fighters who can't stay away from the ring for whatever reason, whether it's financial, whether it's competitive spirit, whether it's a combination of those factors, which is usually the case. These are, and I understand people want to have their fun and they want to see Paul, they want to see Tyson, but to me, boxing, I've taken it too seriously as a reporter and as a historian to some extent of the sport and as a fan to enjoy it when it's kind of done as a carnival.
You know, it's interesting now. Obviously, their legacy with Outside the Lines. People have talked about. You guys were ahead on mental health issues in sports. It seems like it's something that is talked about now. We just had a tragic situation in golf. Have sports changed? Are you allowed to really be honest about what's going on as an athlete or as a team owner? Or are we still sort of, even though there is more public attention to it, do you think that sports is really still a place where it's sometimes hard to be different or hard to struggle?
I think that's definitely the case. I think it's hard wherever you are. Mental health issues are hard for people to talk about. It's hard for people to be vulnerable about themselves. It's easy to talk about other people, right? It's harder to talk about ourselves and our own emotions, but I do think it's changing. And I think on that continuum, we have made great progress. We did a series a couple of years ago about mental health in sports, spoke to, a lot of people, football players, tennis players. We had the Naomi Osaka situation a couple of years ago. Marty Fish has talked about his struggles with mental health. I've talked to Mike Tyson many times over the years about his issues and, the clinical diagnoses that he's had. I think we are at a better point, not just in sports, but in society at large. But I think there's still a long way to go. And I think the leagues are cognizant of it. And I hope that people in our business also are sensitive to these things. And I know that they are in a way that they weren't 20, 30, 40 years ago. Things that people might have said reflexively, they would now think twice about saying about, you got to be tougher, or you got to do this, or, that athlete wilts under pressure, or that athlete, fails to process pressure and clutch situations. And we're talking about human beings, right? With feelings, with emotions. One of the things that I think has really been destructive and deleterious to athletes' mental health, and again, to society at large, of course, is social media. And I've spent a lot of time talking to athletes and coaches about that and how pervasive we know it all is. And you think, okay, these guys, they're making tens of millions of dollars a year. What do they care if some guy with 5 followers says they're terrible or something worse than that, right? On Twitter or X or, whatever you call it now. But they do. People don't like criticism. And I remember talking to Vince Carter a few years ago when he was one of the oldest guys in the league. and he was telling me he couldn't believe it. Guys on his team who were half his age, at halftime, they couldn't get off their phones looking at the criticism that they were receiving for the way they played in the first half, and then they couldn't focus in the second half. It's like, so all of that stuff, I think is, look, I know it for myself, and I barely engage in that stuff. Like, it's hard to turn it off, walk away from it. But I really think that, and there are benefits, there are great things about it too. I'm not saying that, we should ban everything. Although I think there should be certain age limits. It's tough on these athletes.
Jeremy Schaap is joining us. He's got a new doc, E60 doc. It's called No Easy Victories. It's about the 1994 New York Rangers, a team that even if you aren't a New Yorker or don't even like the Rangers, it's one of those teams that lives on. It's like the 85 Bears. It's one that's like mythologized for so many different reasons and has stood the test of time. Last one for you, Jeremy, for me, which is, you're award-winning journalist. You've covered so many different things, and I'm not sure if you're like me in this sense, which is, I never remember the good stuff. I remember the near misses, the things that got away, the things that went awry, that kind of stuff. Is there still a story you're out there chasing, or is there one that, a proverbial story that got away that you always wanted to do?
Oh God, there's so many. Right? There's so many swings and misses, right? One thing that I came very close to doing, I was going to do this sit down with Lance Armstrong before he did the interview with Oprah Winfrey, where he admitted that he had, been cheating all those years. And I had covered him for many years, covered him at the Tour de France. We had, relationship, I call him and, we talk. And at one point, this is about 6 months before that, he calls me and he says, "Hey, I want you to come to Aspen. We're gonna talk about everything. We're gonna do a free form discussion, you and me, in front of 5,000, 6,000 people at some event space there, and it's all on the table." And so that was gonna be a big deal, and I prepped for it. That was about 48 hours before it was supposed to take place, and then Lance pulled the plug shortly before it was going to happen. That would have been an interesting one. I'm not sure he was prepared at that point to actually tell the truth. But we would have tried. It would have been kind of, that's what I love. I love those kinds of high pressure situations, right? Where it's live TV, it's a live audience, and you've got to ask the tough questions and you'll see what you get.
Not many people can say they were scooped by Oprah, Jeremy. I know that's not a silver lining for you, but that's some pretty rarefied air, though. And of course, congratulations again on the documentary. It's E60 doc, No Easy Victories, the 1994 Rangers.
Let's do it again. Less than 6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
what do you
I
say,
know.
Jeremy?
That would be great. I'm available.
This is great. We got an Olympic year coming up. We got a lot of fun things happening.
There. I'll be in Paris.
There you go.
So give me a call.
We had no doubt. This is going to be an interesting one. It's Olympic year, multiple international conflicts going on at the moment. We got an election year. There's a lot in the stew this summer. Jeremy Schaap, again, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate that. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. This is the perfect kind of summer for someone like Jeremy Schaap.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it's going to be very contentious. Olympics. It's funny. I mentally knew that they haven't won again in 30 years, but it's funny. Like, I think 94 Rangers, it's like Messier was holding that cup. It felt like yesterday. I think of the Cubs in 16 as being that kind of like the one-offs. You're right. The second you win your second title, you water down the first title.
I'm sure anyone would take that, though. Take that problem, quote unquote. The other, that's something keeps happening to me with the 1994 stuff, and I don't know if this is happening to you guys. I know I'm no math whiz around here, but I keep saying, 20 years ago. And they're like, no, Maggie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's 30. Like,
Do you ever see that there's this is half my social media feed is when they did this movie, like Back to the Future was shot in 1983 and it was set in 1953. That's like 1996 to right now.
Yes.
Like, where, the time seems to be, to me, the 90s feel the same as now, which is stupid, I guess. But it felt like the difference in time between the 50s and the 80s was much more different than the 90s to now.
I know.
Or is that just because of me?
I think that's because of you, because I think there's just as many advancements, right?
I don't know, but the styles, have they really changed that much from the 90s or the 2000s to 2024? People dress similarly.
Well, that's just because the fashion came back around. Like that's only in fashion. think about nothing's the same. In the 90s, we weren't walking around with cell phones like we are now. That changed everything. Social media didn't exist. The internet was in the very early stages.
I don't know.
The world's totally different now than the 90s.
Yeah, but in the 50s, they had these big cars and jukeboxes and the Fonz, and that's what I know of the 50s.
And that's all that happened. That was
quite
the 50s,
aesthetically different. 60s, everyone was wearing bell bottoms and Haight Ashbury, and then in the 70s, I don't know what.
This is Andrew Perloff tells history.
Yeah, the 70s, it was disco. I feel like Pete Bellotti would have been good in the 70s. I feel like you were miscast in the 2020s. You would have enjoyed that.
80s.
80s is your peak Hulk Hogan era.
Yeah, 9 to 5. Yeah, everything. Yeah, I would have been a great Well, I was born in the 80s, but I wouldn't. But live my teenage years maybe in the 80s would have been great.
Yeah, Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
Oates.
Just
more
Oates.
More Oates.
I mean, Billy Joel, really.
That's right.
I mean, that was him in the heyday, maybe.
Stormfront.
Which decade for you, EJ?
I don't think I'd pick any other decade.
I think you're a
very
fan of the
modern.
90s, though. I remember you telling me you love 90s.
I love the 90s. I feel like I would have enjoyed it more as a child than I would have as a teen. I enjoyed it as a child, but I think if I was a teen, it would have been different. I think it would have been a little too ratchet for me.
Well, as someone who was a teen in the 90s.
There you go.
Was there anything?
It was great.
Was there anything that different going on in the night? It was pre 9/11. That was different.
Yeah, that was definitely different.
Yeah, and we didn't have a cell phone. Well, maybe cell phones did come in the 90s.
Yeah, I
don't think I would have had it though.
Yeah, regardless though, it kind of felt the same.
What decade do you think you were perfect for?
There was a little period in the early 2000s where I was peak Andrew Perloff.
That's when I was a teenager. That was an awesome time.
Yeah, kind of like when, for me, there was this like New York rock scene that I pretended that I was in, like when the Strokes came out.
Yeah,
and
you were right there with the Strokes,
I
huh?
had big hair. Yeah, I was literally in the bar with the Strokes all the time. Like we all hung out. I lived right down where the Strokes lived, and I felt like, oh, I'm cool. I'm in the center of everything. It was a brief time, and the reality is I was nowhere near the center of it. But I convinced myself.
Yeah.
I lived in the right place, and it was the right time, and then that all passed. Things seem different now. I don't know what 2024, but I don't know, technology-wise, yes, other than the phones, I just sat around on my couch and flipped the TV around, kind of like I did last night. My life wasn't radically different. I'm telling you, EJ, you would have been the same in the 90s.
I guess, but again, like
video games.
You notice that none of us said like the 1800s or anything. Like we would have been really good at the pioneers.
Yeah, none of us. No,
I'm the most I'm the most indoors type person, bougie.
90s, late 90s was very aggressive social norms.
Okay.
It was a very some things then wouldn't go over now. Let's just say
definitely very like counterculture, definitely. Which is why again I liked as a child. I think I could in a weird way enjoy it from a distance if I was in it. I'd have to really go back and be like, oh, I really signed off on some of that weird stuff.
Wait, I don't know
anything
what
that
you're
was on MTV.
Like Beavis and Butthead, are we talking about?
Well, anything on TV was kind of aggressive.
Oh, things that don't
Attitude
age well.
Era
You're
wrestling,
talking about
Eminem rap music coming out.
Right.
Anything in that era is very counterculture.
Just things that were accepted then, more so now, in terms of style, and it was a very aggressive era.
Got it. Yeah, I know what you mean. Although I know you love old school rap, EJ.
I love
90s rap.
90s rap is probably, I would say, the best era still.
855-212-4227.
It
would have been good signing the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been allowed to because I'm a woman.
Yeah, I'm saying not too good times for me pre-1980, really.
Yeah, I guess we should all just be happy that we are here now.
Yeah,
We're
but
all
do
together.
any of us fit in 2024? That is an interesting question.
Do any of us fit now?
I think I would be terrible now.
I can't stand now.
You live now. We're
Exactly.
here now.
Yeah, I know. I'm living.
You can't be bad now. This is now.
But
if I was a teenager now, this would be.
Yeah. Who's now? JoJo Siwa? I mean, now is not good.
The music is terrible. The fashion is terrible. I mean, fashion in my era was terrible too, but
the referees are terrible. We talk about them all the time.
You don't want
to
be
bad era for referees.
Yeah, Maggie, you don't want to be good now. This is not a good time.
I got to argue all these LeBron fans. Nobody's a fan of a team. Everyone's a fan of a player. Imagine those cafeteria arguments. Those are the worst. Those would have been the worst.
Guys, I hate to break it to you. We're all peaking right now.
In the sense that it's only going to get worse, true. But I don't know if this is our peak.
Phil said Pete would have made a good pirate.
No, I would not have. No chance.
You'd fold like a house of cards.
That's right.
Now, Pete was born to be 1985, suit with a T-shirt underneath it, Don Johnson style.
Yeah.
Oh,
Push-up
yeah.
sleeves.
Oh, yeah.
Bananarama, everything.
All right, 855-212-4227. Listen, you start a conversation with Jeremy Schaap, you're never sure where it's going to go. And if you miss that conversation with Jeremy, you can always catch the Maggie and Perloff podcast. If you give us a 5-star review, we'd be so grateful for that. You can catch us on the absolutely free to download Odyssey app, which you can hit the rewind function, which is fantastic, and youtube.com/Infinity Sportsnet. Okay, coming up, got a question for you guys about tonight. And we'll answer it next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
We're doing the Maggie and Perloff Eras tour today, talking about our time in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now the 2020s, which we're all down on. I think it's a natural tendency to be down on the era you're in, and then later on look back and say, man, the 2020s were awesome.
Well, that's the whole line from The Office, right? Where he's like, I wish someone would tell you that it's the good old days when you're living them now. I think Aaron Rodgers quotes that a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I do think, we're talking sports today. I can't imagine 15 years from now when my kids ask me, hey, why was Scottie Scheffler in a mugshot wearing an orange prison uniform? That is a story I'm looking forward to telling. Most stories that come out are so crazy. Like, wait, what happened here? And it's like, well, sit down. There was this guy named Jerry Jones. I don't know. It's just like, it is crazy what's going to stick and what's not going to stick because
well, I'll tell
it's a weird era right now.
Yeah, I gather round, everyone. Let me tell you a tale. I think what's going to end up happening, we're doing some long-term predictions here. I think we're all going to remember Rodgers because I think he is going to run for office at some point. I mean, he didn't do the RFK Jr. vice presidential thing because he said he still wanted to play football, and also that's not going to be a winning proposition. RFK is a third-party candidate, but don't you think Rodgers is definitely going to try politics? Isn't everything kind of setting up for that?
No, I don't think so. I think he's going to become a broadcaster. I think he's going to get like CBS or Fox or Amazon.
Oh, like a traditional
Yeah, and I think the money's going to be so big that, if you have enough money, you don't need to go into politics. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that. No, I don't really think so. I understand what he's going through right now, and he wants to get his voice heard. But you really think he's going to want to run for VP? I think this was a unique situation.
I could see it. Just I don't know what state it's going to be.
Do you think he won't be a broadcaster?
I can't see him going the traditional route. I can't.
I can. He's really good at analyzing football. I think he settles down a little bit and Amazon throws him $40 million a year or Netflix or one of these. Everybody's got to have money to burn. Apple, I don't know who's buying the football games moving forward, but somebody's going to. For $40 million a year, I could easily not run for vice president.
I know, and if people stop knocking down your door to ask you,
I know.
ask you that, please.
Joe, Donald, nope, not interested.
In case you were wondering, Andrew Bogusch has headlines.
As we discussed this time yesterday, Bronny James stayed in the NBA draft, but some big names did return to college before last night's midnight Eastern deadline. That list includes UConn's Alex Caravan, Arizona guard Caleb Love, and Alabama stud Mark Sears. There are also guys who dive back into the transfer portal, like former Miami guard, good player, great name, Wooga Poplar. Waiting for an EJ to jump in here.
Yeah.
I'm excited about Ajayi staying to Gonzaga. That's the move because he's a transfer from Pepperdine, all WCC. Now Gonzaga gets him. Maybe national championship finally.
This is like EJ's weird sports fandom when it lays in the weeds, and we're just like, man, Andrew Nembhard, no one saw that coming. EJ's like, I did when he
I'm
was
wearing his jersey.
I loved him at Gonzaga.
Gonzaga has these random guys in the NBA. That's why, as much as I was happy Jalen Brunson was cooking him for 4 games or whatever. It was sad because I was like, oh man, now Andrew, now everybody thinks this guy sucks, and he's not. And he showed the Eastern Conference Finals he's pretty good.
Yeah, he is good.
So, and your Miami love is only for football.
Yes.
Never Miami basketball.
No, I root for Miami basketball only in the sense that it helps the overall athletic program.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if Miami basketball is good, that's not bad for
Next
Miami
level.
football. But am
Okay.
I a fan of them? No.
All right.
Like, how's the fencing team doing? Because, it's a rising tide. Lifts all the boats there.
Except fencing.
I don't really understand. So you remember the last Miami title? You were young.
That was I was 11. Or 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
2002. Okay.
Yeah, I was 11. So that was
that's
that
the
what
age.
got me
That's
into
when
college,
they get you.
college football. Yeah, that's why I was like, all right, I'm a fan. These guys are awesome. I'm watching Ed Reed and Sean Taylor blowing guys up. I mean, come on, that doesn't get you in college, but football, nothing will.
Your fandom ruined the program, though.
Honestly,
Nothing downhill.
I've been a jinx since they won that title, right? It's
Also,
been
being
terrible.
11 in 2002 has ruined you from me at the moment.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, born 91.
Yikes. Leave me alone. The Wizards took the interim tag off Brian Keefe yesterday. They went 8-31 after he replaced Wes Unseld Jr. And as bad as 8-31 sounds, they were 7-36 when Keefe took the job. Pelicans assistant James Borrego reportedly had his second interview with the Lakers yesterday. He and Warriors assistant Kenny Atkinson expected to meet with the Cavaliers in the very near future. And then there's actual basketball. Game 5 for the Mavs and T-Wolves in Minneapolis tonight. Dallas going for the gentleman's sweep. The NHL's Western Conference Final now a best of 3. The Oilers winning Game 4, 5-2 over the Stars to pull even at 2 games apiece, after being down 2-0 after just 5.5 minutes. Can anybody name one of the 2 players who lead MLB in homers this morning?
Oh, the guy from Baltimore.
The guy from Baltimore, Maggie Wynn.
Anderson second in baseball and home runs with 17. The pitch. Gunnar hits his high and deep. Right field. Way back. Way back. It's gone. A grand slam for Gunnar Henderson.
So I guess the follow-up is, who did Henderson join on 18 homers with that grand slam last night?
Shohei Ohtani, Bryce
No,
Harper,
not
Aaron
Shohei.
Judge.
Nope.
Giancarlo Stanton.
The guy
Nope.
from the Cubs.
Nope.
The guy from the Twins.
David Freese. You know what was named that guy there like last week?
Oh, that Hap guy is. I see a lot of highlights of him
The
nowadays.
guy not from the Mets.
Correct. The Mets have 18 home runs as a team?
Wait, Maggie, come on, you got to know this.
Is it Soto?
No, it is Kyle Tucker of the Houston Astros.
Oh my
Outfielder.
God,
I was right.
They can't win a game.
They stink.
Yeah.
What the hell is up with them?
I don't know if they won last night, but
They
they're-
lost last night 2-1.
I remember getting like lambasted on the show. That word's funny. About asking, are the Astros going to figure this out? Or you guys were like, it's April. I'm like, well, now it's almost June. Still sucks.
It's just June.
We had our debate earlier about old school versus new school, the steroid era versus modern baseball.
Yeah.
The one thing that is bad about modern baseball is you don't care about the home run leader unless you're going to make
And
it.
why not? Because the steroid era. They
Right.
ruined it.
But it was so much more fun. As a kid, all I cared about was, did this guy get 30 home runs? Now I could care less about
Yeah.
Gunnar, what's his face?
But also, Judge's run was on morning news shows. Like,
That
people
was cool.
cared about Aaron Judge.
Right, but in general, though, like the home run leader doesn't have the same riz that they used to
No,
have.
the riz is definitely different.
It's definitely. I mean, listen, home runs have been devalued. There's no doubt about it, and you can blame Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire directly, but that doesn't mean it wasn't fun at the time, Maggie.
Well, ironically, you're saying they've been devalued, but they're valued more in actual baseball because the analytics will tell you either walk or home run. Singles are not doing it anymore.
I thought that the analytics is now, it's not just about home runs. I thought they were getting more stuff involved.
Well, it was
feel like there are
especially
so
when the
many-
shift was on so dramatically. Like, that's when launch angle took off because you're trying to lift the ball over the shift and out of the yard. And then they changed the baseballs 100 different times. So the actual balls themselves were crazy. And that's
They
going to be
never
a
did
fun
that.
drop.
You don't trust them when they say that?
Thank you.
The Yankees were 2-1 winners in Anaheim last night. Luis Gil went 8, allowed that 1 run with 9 Ks. That makes 16 consecutive starts of 5+ innings with 2 or fewer runs allowed for Yankee starters. But yes, Stanton swings at bad pitches. Let's be concerned with that. Asia Wilson is the first
They are
player
bad.
in WNBA regular season history with 5 straight 20.10 rebound games. She had 29 and 15 plus 4 blocks in her Aces 80-66 win in Minnesota last night. And if you need more Taysom Hill, I'm your guy. The quarterback / tight end / receiver has been working in the backfield in the offensive new Saints coordinator Clint Kubiak. Hill has taken handoffs, blocked like a fullback. This feels like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0. If you have 6 positions, you have none. This means you're not good enough at one of them to just be left there to play there.
I didn't know there were more positions that Taysom Hill could play on the offense. I'm actually surprised. Fullback and running back never crossed my mind.
Well, yeah, but didn't he play running back a lot last year? I feel like any time they need a first down, it's like hand it off to Taysom, let's go.
Or was it direct snaps?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe?
I guess that's
Wildcats.
Yeah, I like it. I still am into Taysom Hill. I'll tell you, last year there were a lot of times where he would get the first down. Like, what's wrong with Taysom? Why does everyone hate on Taysom Hill just because he doesn't have a position?
I remain wounded by Sean Payton trying to tell me he was an NFL regular quarterback when the world knew that he wasn't.
How do you know? He never got a chance.
He definitely got a chance.
Yeah, he was like 3-1 as a starter.
And it didn't work, and they had to.
He lost one. He had a winning record.
He's not a regular quarterback.
But here's a question: if you have all this need for quarterbacks, right, which we definitely do, because most teams need 2 to get through a season. Why isn't he a quarterback? If he can play quarterback, I feel like there's no stone a team would leave unturned for a quarterback.
There are a lot of guys who can play quarterback. I mean, Carson Wentz can obviously play quarterback, and he doesn't have a team.
Right,
he's on the Rams.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Well, now he does, but he also clearly there was some kind of personality issue.
Chiefs now, actually, I think.
That
yeah, he's back up in the Chiefs.
I thought he was Stafford's. No, Jimmy G is in this.
No, they didn't keep him.
Right.
But there was like a personality issue that I don't think Taysom Hill is dealing with. There was
Well, I
something
just say
else
there are a
with
lot of
Wentz.
qualified starters who are not starting. Like Jacoby Brissett could clearly start in the NFL.
He is going to.
Well, now he's technically
Right, but there are quarterbacks on a roster. Like they're not this guy. I'm having fun with his versatility. He's a very good football
No,
player.
I'm not trying to argue
But-
Taysom Hill is the next coming of Justin Herbert. I'm just
Right.
saying.
But no one wants him to be their backup quarterback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
interesting though. Okay, he is 7-2 career wise. I don't know how he did that.
But why would, if he's really good, he'd be in the mix to be a starter?
I mean, these numbers aren't good. I don't know. That's what I'm
Right?
saying. I don't know how
He's a running.
he did
You know,
that.
it's like Tebow won a lot of games by never turning the ball over and running a lot.
He turned him over a lot though. He had 5 interceptions in 7 games at one point. Or no, excuse me, in 5 games. I don't know. I don't know how they won those games. Like they almost. It's like a black hole in my memory of him playing quarterback and then winning.
Again, I'm wondering now with the new kickoff rules, is somehow Taysom Hill going to get involved in special teams more?
Also, he's really old. Like I mean, old
Yeah,
for
he's
football
lost
terms.
step.
He's 33 years old. Like, I'm like, how valuable is he still?
He's a crazy freak athlete. He ran a 4.4, and he's like 6'3", 240. He could have been something. I think he probably got caught in between. But hey, the guy's still around.
Yeah, he is.
God bless him,
Multiple coaching staff.
And he was like, nobody thought anything of him coming out of BYU. Like, no one would have imagined this career. In fact, like, if I told
Only
you coming
Sean
out of
Payton
BYU,
did.
yeah, if I told you coming out of BYU that we're going to do a headline where he's playing fullback in 2024, you would have been like, what?
Stupid 2020.
Like there are fullbacks.
What else we got?
That's it. I'm done.
All right. Well, that was it. That was good. That was enough. We've got picks for you for tonight. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Picks. We got some polls to update for you in just a moment, but I've got a question. Welcome back, by the way, Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. I got a question for you because I found this odd. It's something that's going around on social media, which is people don't eat certain foods during the summer. And that
surprises you?
Yeah, that doesn't square with me. I'm not that kind of a person. Like I eat off of like cravings. I've always been like this.
Right.
Like if I'm craving a chicken parmesan, it doesn't matter to me if it's 110 degrees outside or if it's 20 degrees outside. The weather does not play into my food cravings.
Right. You understand that makes you different than everybody else.
I don't know. I think if you want a hamburger or a scoop of ice cream, it doesn't matter to me whether it's February or July.
Okay, but are you more likely to order a giant bowl of chili in January or in July?
Well, I'm not a huge chili person, but I get your point. If I feel like in the mood for chili, I'll just order it whenever I want. I don't eat by season. Like I'm also somebody who I drink hot coffee even if it's 90 degrees outside.
Yeah, but it's more caffeine. I totally agree with that. But you don't eat watermelon in February. You eat watermelon in July.
I know, but why not? So we live in a world now where you don't have to eat seasonally because of advancements in farming and all of that stuff. And it's not like, oh, you only get blueberries in July now. You get blueberries anytime. You get watermelon anytime.
Yeah, but those blueberries are terrible because they've been flown in from halfway across the world and they're so flavorless. No. You got to eat fruit according to season.
What are you stopping at a farm stand on the way home?
Oh, I would. If I could afford it, I would. It's just it costs you $13 for 2 peaches. Yes, farm stand fruit is so much better. Yeah, you got to try and go seasonal on the things, and obviously the temperature of the food. Yeah, if it's 100 degrees out, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to go get
French onion soup,
some shepherd's pie. I don't know what. Yeah, you obviously eat according to the temperature.
It doesn't matter to me. If you're gonna eat, what season do you say pizza is?
Pizza's probably seasonless.
Okay, so that's like someone I saw on social media is like, I don't eat chicken parmesan. It's like it's basically pizza. You have all the ingredients except for the chicken. It's sauce, it's cheese, and It's the same thing.
Well, I feel like sandwiches, because the bread is not necessarily hot. Sandwiches can be year round.
Okay.
Chicken parm. Wait, it's a chicken parm sandwich or it's chicken
whatever
parm
it was.
meal?
It doesn't matter.
Huh.
I thought you were saying chicken parm, like a chicken parmigiana, like
an
dish.
entree.
Yeah, that's not like pizza.
But think about it. It kind of has all the ingredients except for the dough. It's
But
got
chicken-
the sauce
chicken
and it's got
and
the cheese.
Fried chicken and dough is completely different. They just changed the whole landscape.
Yeah. That's like saying steak and potatoes is basically pizza. Like, what are you talking about? They just changed. They got rid of the red meat and put in dough and cheese. Like, what?
You guys are crazy. I think if you're crazy, so you're telling me you don't eat ice cream all winter.
I was not that kind of person until I met my girlfriend. She is an ice cream fiend. Her whole family is. I was not someone who really ate ice cream during the winter. I didn't. It's weird.
We go out for ice cream. So we live in a neighborhood with a lot of great ice cream shops.
Yeah.
We go out in the summer at night, almost every night, and there's a line around the corner. Guess when that line is not there? February.
That's when you should go.
Yeah.
But like, do you eat soup during the summer? I don't.
So I'm not a big soup person, but I'm a craving person. So if I get it in my head that I really want lobster bisque, I'm getting it. Whether it's, and I'm not saying I'm sitting outside on a stoop in 100-degree heat as it's curdling, but if I want the lobster bisque or if I want the broccoli cheese soup or chicken soup, whatever it is, I'm eating it.
Well,
it doesn't
lobster
matter.
bisque actually is a summer soup because the lobsters are available. But
I'm just saying.
if you order broccoli cheese soup on a 98 degrees day, they should put you in a mental hospital. That is the weirdest order ever.
If it's on the menu.
I'll have the gazpacho. I'm going to get the broccoli cheese soup. It's 100 degrees out, Maggie. What are you, out of your mind? What do you want to be sweating cheese out of your forehead?
Man, I didn't realize I was in the wrong here. I thought
You didn't realize,
people
but
eat.
you did realize that was unusual.
No, because I've heard like things about like economics where ice cream sales like in supermarkets stay flat all year round. People buy as much ice cream, like Ben and Jerry's, like pints and stuff. They buy as much in the winter as they do in the summer.
I don't know.
I've seen that.
I'd like to see the, what about Baskin Robbins?
Well, I don't know if that's a little different. Going out to ice cream is like a.
I'd like to
it's
see
an
these
event.
studies. You're telling me people do not eat more ice cream in the summer. I'm dubious of these studies.
I feel like I'll look it up for you. I'll get you the data.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt. There's no way that's true.
Andrew
I'm rejecting
Kaplan's
your
saying
numbers.
I drink iced coffee in the winter. So it's like the
I
same
do that.
thing.
That I do.
What's the difference? You're drinking iced coffee in the winter. I drink hot coffee in the summer. It's not seasonal. Just because a food is hot doesn't mean you don't eat it in the months of June, July, and August and September.
Because you don't sit on a park bench and enjoy an ice cream cone when there's ice at your feet. It's just not a thing that people do because it's cold outside, so you don't want cold foods because they make you colder. And if it's hot outside, you don't want hot foods because they make you hotter.
You sure about that? Daly says, I'm the same as Maggie. Weather doesn't affect my foods chosen. So thank you. Someone's backing me up in the chat.
I just really, do you think you're in the majority here or you think you're in the minority here?
I think I'm in the majority. I thought that, but
You
maybe
really
I'm wrong.
do.
I
You really do.
I think you just, you want to eat something, you eat it. You're in the mood for a steak. Doesn't matter what month it is.
Yeah.
By the way, I hate to do the production meeting on the show thing, but I had a really good suggestion from Kevin from Oregon, who was like, since we're doing old school, new school week, and we talked about being teens in certain generations, they want teen pictures of all of us that we should post and so people can see what we look like as teens.
As teens? Okay.
Might be kind of fun.
Spoiler, I look exactly the same. Not because I look young now. I looked old then.
I like the picture. There's a video of Maggie playing tennis as a teenager, which is quite entertaining. You're wailing on that ball.
Thank
it looks
you.
like Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, righty. But
screaming.
Yeah.
Funny is I'm probably wearing the same jersey back then that I'm wearing today. Stephon Marbury throwback. It's probably what I would have been wearing back then anyway.
Good for you. You can still fit in all your stuff.
That's true.
Okay. Tonight, you got to pick for us.
Oh, it's over. Sorry, Minnesota. I think Minnesota is up by 3 with 3 minutes left, and Anthony Edwards has 7 turnovers in the last 3 minutes, as he does every game. And the Mavs, and Luka hits 2 shots, and it's over. That's all she wrote. I think Game 4 was the anomaly, and Mavs figure it out and end it.
Well, then you would probably like the Mavs money line at plus 160 if you believe that they're going to close it out tonight.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that because the Mavs are up 3-1. I'm actually being a little mean on Anthony Edwards, but Edwards is out of juice. He played pretty well in Game 4, and it still was half of what he had been doing in the earlier series. Just doesn't have the legs anymore.
Well, here's a question. What if still the Mavs are like, I don't want to say playing with their food a little bit, but if they don't bring the big energy like they did in Game 4, and say you get another great shooting night from Karl Anthony Towns, like
you're not.
But here's the thing. The Timberwolves were the number 1 seed for a reason, you know? I'm sorry, number 2 seed.
Yeah.
Number 2 seed for a reason. Took out the Nuggets on their home floor in a Game 7. We've seen them play big. So, Karl Anthony Towns was in an all-time shooting slump. He got out of it in the last game. For most good players of his caliber, you'd assume that he would stay out of that slump and he would continue with another hot night.
I think the difference is, and I've said it all playoff long, is experience. I mean, Kyrie has been there so many times. Luka now has got a lot of playoff experience. I just don't think the T-Wolves are ready. I think they're not exactly the right age of youth, right mix of youth and veterans. And Karl Anthony Towns has been around a while, but doesn't play like it at times.
I like Mike Conley, though. He's a good veteran. I mean, he hasn't won a title, but he's a good veteran.
Well, I mean, you understand they're losing the series, right?
I do. I do understand.
And
that.
also,
Kyle Anderson's
obviously, they have, to me, a problem that Rudy just floating out in space is such a nightmare for them. They still haven't figured it out. Even in the game that they won, Dallas had a lot of shots. Kyrie was uncharacteristically cold. I think he hits the shots that he missed in the last game. I do like the T-Wolves' future. I just don't think it's now.
One prop that I might like, I actually think Karl Anthony Towns is going to have another good game. So he's over-under on points is 20.5. So the over just plus 102. I mean, it's not major odds here, but that's something I like.
Do you have the over-under on Ant right there?
I do. Anthony Edwards points over-under 28.5.
Oof. Under.
Juice to the under, minus 120.
You got to go under.
Yeah. Thank you, DJ Stewart. Thank you to EMPLODE. Thank you to Andrew Bogusch, Andrew Kaplan, Weedos, Coffee Drinkers. You guys are awesome. Jeremy Schaap, RJ Ochoa. It's been a fun show. Back tomorrow to close out the week strong. Don't miss it. The actual balls themselves were crazy.